For centuries, the Inuit of Greenland have lowered their lines through the sea ice, fishing for a creature they call ekaluswak. A Greenland shark pulled from those cold depths today may have been born during the Renaissance, when the works of Leonardo da Vinci were still being painted. The night holds its breath, so settle in and let the stories guide you toward a peaceful rest. We are going somewhere. There is time. The lights can stay dim. In 2016, the marine biologist Julius Nielsen confirmed through carbon-14 dating that the Greenland shark can live for up to 400 years, making it the longest-lived vertebrate on Earth. That ancient animal glides through the dark waters with a calm that outlasts empires, and its story, measured in centuries, is the one we will follow now. In the cold, dark waters of the North Atlantic and Arctic Ocean, a creature moves with a patience that defies human comprehension. This is the Greenland shark, Somniosus microcephalus, a living relic that has witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations from the depths of a world that never warms. Its biology is a study in extremes, a slow and deliberate design that has allowed it to persist for centuries, perhaps even for half a millennium, in an environment that would kill most other vertebrates within hours. The sheer scale of the Greenland shark is often underestimated, for it is one of the largest sharks in the world, rivaling the great white in length and exceeding it in bulk. Adult females commonly reach lengths of 6 to 7 meters, though some unverified reports suggest individuals may exceed 7 meters, with a body mass that can surpass 1,000 kilograms. This immense size is not achieved through rapid growth, but through a relentless, unhurried accumulation of tissue over many decades, a testament to the shark's extraordinarily slow metabolism. The body is robust and cylindrical, with a short, rounded snout and small eyes, giving it a distinctly ancient, almost prehistoric appearance. Its skin is rough and covered in dermal denticles, small tooth-like scales that reduce drag and protect against parasites, though they are not enough to deter the persistent copepod that will one day blind it. To survive in waters that hover near the freezing point of seawater, the Greenland shark has evolved a suite of biochemical adaptations that are nothing short of remarkable. Its tissues are saturated with high concentrations of trimethylamine oxide, or TMAO, and urea, compounds that act as natural antifreeze agents. These solutes lower the freezing point of the shark's bodily fluids, preventing the formation of ice crystals in its cells even when the surrounding ocean drops to -2 degrees Celsius. The concentration of TMAO in the shark's muscles can be more than 100 times higher than that found in typical fish, a level that would be fatal to most other animals but is essential for the Greenland shark's survival. This chemical cocktail also creates a profound osmotic gradient, allowing the shark to maintain a stable internal environment despite the extreme salinity of the Arctic seas. The enzymes of the Greenland shark are equally specialized, functioning with remarkable efficiency at temperatures that would render the proteins of warm water sharks completely inert. These enzymes possess a unique flexibility in their molecular structure, allowing them to undergo the necessary conformational changes required for catalysis even when thermal energy is scarce. The metabolic rate of the Greenland shark is the slowest of any shark species ever measured, a direct consequence of this cold-adapted biochemistry and the animal's sedentary lifestyle. Researchers have estimated that the shark's resting heart rate may be as low as 1 or 2 beats per minute, and its oxygen consumption is a fraction of that seen in more active sharks. This sluggish pace of life is not a weakness, but a strategy that conserves energy and allows the shark to survive on infrequent, large meals, perhaps feasting on a seal carcass or a dead whale only once every few weeks or months. The very flesh of the Greenland shark is toxic to humans, a direct result of the high concentrations of TMAO and urea that protect it from the cold. The TMAO, when ingested, breaks down into trimethylamine, a compound that produces a powerful, ammonia-like odor and causes severe neurological effects, including ataxia, convulsions, and even death. This toxicity is so pronounced that the raw meat of the Greenland shark is considered inedible and dangerous, a fact that has been known to the indigenous peoples of the Arctic for centuries. To render the flesh safe for consumption, it must undergo a lengthy fermentation process, resulting in a dish known as hakarl. The shark is buried in a shallow pit or packed in a wooden box with stones to press out the fluids, allowing the toxic compounds to leach away over several weeks, after which the meat is hung to dry for several more months. The final product has a pungent, ammonia-rich flavor that is an acquired taste, but it represents a remarkable cultural adaptation to the presence of a dangerous but abundant food source. Perhaps the most striking feature of the Greenland shark is its eyes, which are often covered in a milky, white film. This is not a sign of disease or age, but the work of a parasitic copepod, Omatocoita elongata, which attaches itself to the cornea of the shark. The copepod hangs from the eye like a small, translucent tendril, feeding on the shark's corneal tissue and effectively blinding the animal in that eye. It is a bizarre and seemingly cruel relationship, but it appears to cause the shark little distress, as the parasite does not penetrate the inner eye or cause any systemic infection. The copepod's presence is so common that nearly every adult Greenland shark carries at least one of these parasites, and many are completely blind in both eyes. Yet the Greenland shark does not rely on vision to navigate its dark, deep water world. Its senses are tuned to other modalities, primarily the lateral line system and electroreception. The lateral line is a series of fluid-filled canals running along the sides of the body, containing hair cells that detect minute vibrations and pressure changes in the water. This system allows the shark to sense the movements of prey, predators, and even the subtle currents created by its own movements, effectively giving it a form of touch at a distance. Even more remarkable is the shark's ability to detect the weak electrical fields generated by all living organisms. Specialized organs called the ampullae of Lorenzini, located around the snout and head, can sense voltages as low as 1/1000th of a volt per centimeter, allowing the shark to locate hidden prey buried in the sediment or shrouded in darkness. With these two systems working in concert, the Greenland shark does not need to see its world. It feels it, hears it, and senses it in a way that is alien to the human experience. The most astonishing aspect of the Greenland shark's biology is its lifespan, which is among the longest of any vertebrate animal on Earth. Early estimates based on growth rates suggested that these sharks could live for over 100 years, but a landmark study in 2016 used radiocarbon dating of the eye lens nucleus to reveal a far more ancient timeline. The lens of the eye is a unique structure, as it is composed of proteins that are laid down in layers during the shark's development and do not turn over the course of a lifetime. This means that the innermost core of the lens contains proteins that were formed when the shark was young, and the radiocarbon content of these proteins reflects the level of carbon-14 in the environment at that time. By measuring the radiocarbon signal, scientists can determine the age of the shark with remarkable precision, especially when combined with the bomb pulse from nuclear testing in the 1950s and 1960s, which created a spike in carbon-14 levels that is still detectable in the environment. The study analyzed the eye lenses of 28 female Greenland sharks, and the results were staggering. The largest shark examined, which measured just over 5 meters in length, was estimated to be between 272 and 512 years old, with a most likely age of 392 years. This means that the shark was born sometime in the early 17th century, during the reign of King James I of England, and it has been swimming in the cold waters of the Arctic ever since. The radiocarbon dating method also revealed that Greenland sharks do not reach sexual maturity until they are at least 150 years old, a staggering investment of time before they are able to reproduce. This slow maturation, combined with a slow growth rate of perhaps only 1 centimeter per year, is a direct consequence of the shark's metabolic extremism and its cold, stable environment. The exact mechanism that allows the Greenland shark to live for so long is still not fully understood, but it is likely related to its low metabolic rate and the protective effects of TMAO and other compounds. The shark's cells are exposed to high levels of urea and TMAO, which are known to stabilize proteins and protect them from damage, potentially reducing the accumulation of cellular waste that contributes to aging. Additionally, the shark's low body temperature slows down all biochemical reactions, including those that cause oxidative stress and DNA damage. The Greenland shark may also have enhanced DNA repair mechanisms, though this is an area of active research. What is clear is that this creature has evolved a biological strategy that prioritizes longevity over speed, patience over aggression, and endurance over reproduction. It is an ancient formula that has allowed it to outlive every human civilization, every empire, and every technological revolution, all while swimming in the darkness of a world that remains as cold and mysterious as the day it was born. The Greenland shark's circulatory system is a marvel of adaptation to near-freezing waters, with a heart rate that can drop to as low as 5 beats per minute. Blood pressure remains low, reducing the energy required to pump blood through the body, and the blood itself is rich in urea and trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO, at concentrations that would be toxic to most other vertebrates. These solutes serve a dual purpose. They raise the freezing point of the shark's bodily fluids, preventing ice crystal formation in the frigid Arctic, and they stabilize proteins and cellular structures against the denaturing effects of cold and pressure. The high levels of TMAO also counteract the destabilizing effects of urea, creating a delicate osmotic balance that allows the shark to thrive in deep, cold waters where other predators cannot survive. This biochemical equilibrium is a key component of the shark's low metabolic rate, as it minimizes the need for energy-intensive repair processes. At the cellular level, the Greenland shark appears to possess unusually robust mechanisms for maintaining protein homeostasis, often referred to as proteostasis. The presence of urea and TMAO in the tissues promotes the folding of proteins into their correct shapes, reducing the accumulation of misfolded proteins that can lead to cellular dysfunction and aging. Additionally, the shark's cells are likely protected by high levels of heat shock proteins, which act as molecular chaperones to refold damaged proteins and prevent aggregation. Research has shown that cold-adapted organisms often have a higher baseline expression of these protective proteins, and the Greenland shark is no exception, though the exact molecular signature remains under investigation. The combination of chemical chaperones from TMAO and urea, along with endogenous heat shock proteins, creates a cellular environment that is remarkably resistant to the oxidative stress that typically accompanies aging in other animals. The mitochondria of the Greenland shark are also adapted to function efficiently at low temperatures, producing energy with minimal leakage of reactive oxygen species. In most animals, mitochondrial respiration generates oxygen-free radicals that damage DNA, lipids, and proteins over time, contributing to the aging process. However, the shark's mitochondria appear to have a reduced rate of electron transport chain leakage, possibly due to the high levels of unsaturated fatty acids in their cell membranes that maintain membrane fluidity in the cold. These adaptations result in a lower production of reactive oxygen species per unit of energy, slowing the accumulation of oxidative damage across the shark's centuries-long lifespan. Furthermore, the shark's antioxidant defenses, including enzymes such as superoxide dismutase and glutathione peroxidase, are present at levels that match or exceed those of much shorter-lived fish species, providing an additional layer of protection. The Greenland shark's muscle tissue is almost entirely composed of slow-twitch, oxidative fibers, which are designed for sustained, low-energy swimming rather than bursts of speed. These fibers rely on aerobic metabolism and are rich in myoglobin, giving the flesh a deep red color and allowing the shark to efficiently extract oxygen from the cold, oxygen-rich waters of the deep sea. The absence of fast-twitch, glycolytic muscle fibers means that the Greenland shark cannot accelerate rapidly, but it also means that its muscles produce very little lactate, avoiding the fatigue and acidosis that would plague a more active predator. This muscular architecture is perfectly suited to the shark's scavenging lifestyle, where it patrols vast areas of the seafloor at a cruising speed of less than 1 kilometer per hour, conserving energy in a nutrient-poor environment. The sensory systems of the Greenland shark are adapted to the perpetual darkness of its deepwater habitat, where sunlight does not penetrate. Its eyes are often covered by a parasitic copepod, Omatocoida elongata, which attaches to the cornea and feeds on the shark's corneal tissue, rendering the shark partially or completely blind. Despite this apparent handicap, the shark navigates and hunts effectively using other senses, particularly its highly developed olfactory system. The olfactory bulbs occupy a significant portion of the shark's brain, allowing it to detect minute concentrations of scent molecules from prey or carrion carried by ocean currents over long distances. The shark also possesses ampullae of Lorenzini, electroreceptive organs that can detect the weak electrical fields generated by the muscles and nerves of hidden or buried prey, and a lateral line system that senses vibrations and pressure changes in the water. Reproduction in the Greenland shark is an extraordinarily slow process, consistent with its overall life history strategy of delayed maturation and extreme longevity. The species is ovoviviparous, meaning that the embryos develop inside eggs that remain within the female's body until they hatch and are born live. The gestation period is estimated to be between 8 and 18 years, making it the longest known pregnancy of any vertebrate. though this figure is based on limited data and indirect evidence from growth rates and population modeling. Litter sizes are relatively small, typically ranging from 4 to 10 pups, each measuring about 40 to 50 centimeters in length at birth. Females are believed to reach sexual maturity at around 150 years of age, a milestone that underscores the immense investment required to produce each generation in this cold, unproductive environment. The diet of the Greenland shark is highly varied, reflecting its role as both a scavenger and an opportunistic predator. Stomach content analyses have revealed the remains of polar bears, reindeer, seals, and a wide variety of fish, including cod, halibut, and redfish, as well as squid and other invertebrates. Much of this food is likely obtained through scavenging, as the shark's slow swimming speed and poor vision make it unlikely to capture fast-moving prey. However, some studies have detected the remains of seals and sharks captured in areas where seal carcasses are rare, suggesting that the sharks may occasionally ambush sleeping or resting seals in the water. The shark's mouth is relatively small for its body size, but its jaws are lined with rows of sharp comb-like teeth that can grip and tear flesh, and it is capable of sucking in prey using a rapid expansion of its buccal cavity. The Greenland shark's digestive system is adapted to process large meals infrequently, as its low metabolic rate allows it to go for weeks or even months between feedings. The stomach can expand to accommodate a substantial volume of food, and the digestive enzymes are active at low temperatures, allowing the shark to slowly break down and absorb nutrients from carrion that may be partially decomposed. The intestines are short and simple, with a spiral valve that increases surface area for absorption without requiring a long digestive tract. This efficiency is crucial in an environment where food is scarce and unpredictable, and the shark must make the most of every meal it encounters. Buoyancy is maintained by a massive liver that occupies up to 20% of the shark's body weight and is filled with low-density oils, primarily squalene. The liver is divided into 2 lobes and contains high concentrations of this hydrocarbon, which is less dense than seawater and provides neutral buoyancy without the need for a swim bladder. This adaptation is common among deep-sea sharks, as it allows them to remain suspended in the water column with minimal energy expenditure, conserving precious metabolic resources. The lack of a swim bladder also means that the Greenland shark is not subject to the pressure-related changes in buoyancy that affect bony fish, making it equally at home at depths of several hundred meters as it is near the surface. The skin of the Greenland shark is covered in dermal denticles, small tooth-like scales that are typical of cartilaginous fish. These denticles are covered with hard enamel-like material and are arranged in a pattern that reduces drag as the shark swims, but they also provide a tough, abrasive surface that protects the shark from parasites and the teeth of other predators. The denticles are more widely spaced than those of faster-swimming sharks, reflecting the Greenland shark's slow, deliberate movements. Beneath the skin, the body is supported by a cartilaginous skeleton that is lighter and more flexible than bone, further reducing the energy required to move. The parasitic copepod Omatocoida elongata is a permanent fixture on many Greenland sharks, attaching itself to the cornea of one or both eyes and feeding on the shark's corneal tissue. The copepod is bioluminescent, emitting a faint greenish glow that may actually attract prey to the shark's mouth, though this hypothesis remains speculative. The shark's immune system does not seem to reject the parasite, and the copepod can live for years on the same host, with no apparent ill effects on the shark's overall health. The loss of functional vision is compensated by the shark's other senses, and the relationship may be a form of commensalism or even mutualism if the bioluminescence aids in feeding. The Greenland shark's cardiovascular system is also notable for its ability to maintain oxygen delivery in cold water, where oxygen solubility is high, but blood viscosity is increased. The blood contains a high concentration of hemoglobin, but the oxygen-binding affinity of this hemoglobin is adapted to function at low temperatures, releasing oxygen at a rate that matches the shark's low metabolic demand. The gills are efficient at extracting oxygen from the water, with a large surface area and thin diffusion barriers that compensate for the reduced diffusion rates at low temperatures. This allows the shark to maintain a resting oxygen consumption rate that is among the lowest recorded for any fish, consistent with its energy-saving lifestyle. The nervous system of the Greenland shark is also adapted to the cold, with nerve conduction velocities that are slower than those of warm water sharks but still sufficient for the animal's needs. The brain is relatively small for a shark of its size, with a notable emphasis on the olfactory bulbs and the cerebellum, which coordinates movement and balance. The shark's behavior is slow and deliberate, with no need for rapid reflexes in an environment where most prey is either dead or sluggish. This neural economy is part of the overall biological strategy of minimizing energy expenditure in a world where every calorie counts. The Greenland shark's skin is also covered in a thin layer of mucus that provides additional protection against infection and fouling organisms. The mucus contains antimicrobial peptides and enzymes that inhibit the growth of bacteria and fungi on the shark's surface. This is particularly important in a cold environment where healing is slow and infections can be difficult to clear. The shark's immune system is relatively unspecialized compared to that of mammals, but it is effective at preventing disease in the long intervals between feeding events. The reproductive cycle of the Greenland shark is so slow that it may take decades for a female to produce a single litter, and the pups are born fully formed and independent, with no parental care. The yolk sac provides nourishment during the long gestation, and the pups are relatively large at birth, giving them a head start in the cold, competitive environment. The slow maturation and low reproductive output mean that the population is highly vulnerable to overfishing, as it takes many years for individuals to replace themselves. This is why the Greenland shark has been listed as near threatened by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, and why conservation efforts focus on protecting its habitat and reducing bycatch. The Greenland shark's ability to tolerate high levels of urea in its tissues is also a key adaptation to its deep-water habitat, where osmotic pressure increases with depth. Urea is a waste product in most animals, but the shark retains it as an osmolyte to balance the high salt concentration of seawater. The high urea levels would normally denature proteins, but the presence of TMAO counteracts this effect, allowing the shark to maintain a stable internal environment. This biochemical pairing is a classic example of evolutionary adaptation, enabling the shark to exploit a niche that would be toxic to most other fish. The Greenland shark's longevity is also linked to its low rate of cell division, which reduces the risk of cancer and other age-related diseases. The shark's cells have a limited capacity for proliferation, and the telomeres that protect the ends of chromosomes appear to be remarkably stable, possibly due to the low metabolic rate and reduced oxidative stress. While the exact mechanisms are not yet fully understood, the Greenland shark offers a unique model for studying the biology of extreme longevity, with potential insights for human aging research. The shark's liver, in addition to providing buoyancy, also serves as a major energy reserve, storing lipids that can be metabolized during periods of fasting. The liver's squalene content gives it a low density, but it also contains other oils and fats that are rich in long-chain unsaturated fatty acids. These fatty acids are important for maintaining membrane fluidity in the cold, and they also provide a source of energy that is slowly released as the shark's metabolism requires. The liver can be enormous, accounting for up to 90% of the shark's total body weight in some individuals, and its size may be one of the reasons why the shark can survive for so long between meals. The Greenland shark's immune system is also adapted to the cold, with immune cells that function effectively at low temperatures and a relatively low level of inflammation. Chronic inflammation is a major driver of aging in many animals, but the Greenland shark appears to have mechanisms that dampen inflammatory responses, reducing the cumulative damage over decades. The exact signaling pathways involved are still being studied, but they likely involve anti-inflammatory cytokines and specialized pro-resolving mediators that help resolve inflammation quickly. The muscles of the Greenland shark are not only slow twitch, but also contain high concentrations of myoglobin, which stores oxygen and allows the shark to sustain aerobic activity for extended periods. The myoglobin is adapted to function at low temperatures, with a high oxygen affinity that ensures the muscle is always supplied with oxygen even when the water is cold and the shark is moving slowly. This is essential for the shark's scavenging lifestyle, as it may need to swim for days or weeks to find a single large meal. The Greenland shark's teeth are replaced continuously throughout its life, with new teeth moving forward to replace old ones that are shed or worn down. The teeth are arranged in multiple rows, with the outer row being the most functional, and the replacement rate is slow, consistent with the shark's overall low metabolic rate. The teeth are small and sharp, adapted for gripping and tearing rather than cutting, and they are ideal for consuming carrion that may be tough or partially frozen. The Greenland shark's swim bladder is absent, but the shark's high lipid content and cartilaginous skeleton provide nearly neutral buoyancy, allowing it to hover effortlessly in the water column. The shark does not need to swim constantly to avoid sinking, and it can rest on the seafloor for extended periods without expending energy. This lack of a swim bladder also means that the shark is not subject to the bends when ascending from depth, as it does not have a gas-filled cavity that would expand or contract with pressure changes. The Greenland shark's skin also contains sensory cells that detect changes in temperature, pressure, and salinity, providing the shark with a comprehensive picture of its environment. These cells are distributed across the body, but they are particularly concentrated on the head and around the mouth, where they help the shark locate food in the dark. The lateral line system is also highly sensitive, allowing the shark to detect the subtle movements of injured or dying prey from a distance. The Greenland shark's ability to survive for centuries is a testament to the power of natural selection in a stable, cold environment where the pressures of predation and competition are low. Every aspect of its biology, from its slow metabolism to its robust cellular defenses, is optimized for endurance rather than speed. The shark's genome likely contains further secrets, and scientists are now sequencing its DNA to identify the genes that govern its remarkable longevity. While the full story is not yet written, the Greenland shark continues to swim through the deep, dark waters of the North Atlantic, a living archive of evolutionary history and a reminder that patience can be the most powerful strategy of all. Beneath the surface of its ancient appearance lies a suite of physiological adaptations that are equally remarkable. The Greenland shark's metabolism operates at an extraordinarily low rate, even by the standards of cold water fish. Its heart beats only a few times per minute, and its oxygen consumption is among the lowest recorded for any shark species. This metabolic economy allows the shark to survive on meager rations, often going months between large meals. The energy it conserves is instead directed towards cellular maintenance and repair, a trade-off that underpins its centuries-long lifespan. The shark's blood chemistry is uniquely adapted to the freezing waters of the North Atlantic. High concentrations of urea and trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO, act as natural antifreeze and osmotic stabilizers. These compounds prevent ice crystals from forming in the shark's tissues, even when the water temperature drops below the freezing point of most vertebrate blood. The same molecules also protect proteins from denaturation under the immense pressure of the deep sea. Without this biochemical armor, the Greenland shark could not survive in the cold, dark abyss it calls home. Its muscle tissue is a study in slow, steady power. The shark's white muscle fibers, which most fish use for short bursts of speed, are instead adapted for sustained, low-level swimming. The accumulation of metabolic waste products like lactate is minimized, allowing the shark to maintain a constant, leisurely pace through the water column. This slow twitch musculature is supported by a rich network of capillaries that deliver oxygen efficiently, even in the oxygen-poor depths. The result is a creature that can glide for hours with minimal effort, conserving energy over decades of travel. The shark's liver is enormous, comprising up to 20% of its total body weight. This organ is packed with low-density oils and squalene, a hydrocarbon that provides buoyancy in the water column. The liver also serves as a long-term energy reserve, allowing the shark to survive extended periods without food. Over the course of a century, the liver slowly accumulates and releases lipids, fine-tuning the shark's buoyancy and energy balance. This lipid storage is believed to be one of the key factors enabling the shark's slow growth and extreme longevity. Reproduction in the Greenland shark is a process measured in decades, not years. Females are thought to reach sexual maturity only after they have lived for more than a century, possibly as long as 150 years. The gestation period is estimated to be between 8 and 18 years, the longest known for any vertebrate. Litters are small, typically containing fewer than a dozen pups, each born fully formed and independent. The mother invests enormous resources into each offspring, but the extreme delay in reproduction means that population turnover is exceedingly slow. The shark's skeletal system is composed entirely of cartilage, which is lighter and more flexible than bone. This cartilaginous structure is reinforced with calcium salts in certain areas, providing strength without adding excessive weight. The jaw is particularly robust, capable of generating enough force to crush the shells of mollusks and the bones of seals. Yet the cartilage itself is also a site of remarkable biological resilience, as it resists degradation even in the shark's century-old body. The slow turnover of cartilage cells may contribute to the animal's overall longevity. The nervous system of the Greenland shark operates at a glacial pace, yet it is exquisitely tuned to its environment. The shark's brain is relatively small compared to its body size, but it is dominated by regions dedicated to olfaction and electroreception. The olfactory bulbs are large, allowing the shark to detect the scent of prey from kilometers away. The ampullae of Lorenzini, jelly-filled pores scattered across the snout, sense the faint electrical fields produced by living creatures. These sensory inputs are processed slowly but with great precision, enabling the shark to navigate and hunt in total darkness. Cellular aging in the Greenland shark is unlike that of most other vertebrates. Telomeres, the protective caps on the ends of chromosomes, appear to shorten at a much slower rate, if at all. The shark's cells also show high levels of DNA repair activity, correcting errors that accumulate over decades of replication. Proteins are maintained with remarkable fidelity, resisting the misfolding and aggregation that lead to age-related diseases in other animals. These cellular defenses are likely under strong genetic control, and researchers are now identifying the specific genes responsible. The shark's antioxidant defenses are exceptionally robust, protecting its tissues from oxidative damage that normally accelerates aging. High levels of the enzyme superoxide dismutase and other antioxidants are present in its liver and muscle tissue. These compounds neutralize free radicals produced as byproducts of metabolism. Even in the cold, oxygen-rich waters where the shark lives, the shark's skin also contains melanin pigments that absorb ultraviolet radiation, a rare adaptation for a deep-sea creature that occasionally surfaces. The Greenland shark's gills are large and efficient, extracting oxygen from water that is often near the freezing point. The gill filaments are lined with specialized cells that transport ions and maintain the shark's unique osmotic balance. Blood flow through the gills is regulated to match the shark's low metabolic demands, preventing unnecessary energy loss. The shark can also periodically shut down parts of its gill circulation, conserving heat in the cold environment. This fine-tuned respiratory system allows the shark to remain active even in the most extreme conditions. The shark's heart, though slow, is a powerful pump built for endurance. The cardiac muscle contains a high density of mitochondria, the energy-producing organelles that sustain continuous, low-frequency contractions. The heart rate can drop to just a few beats per minute during rest, but it can also increase slightly during active hunting. The shark's blood vessels are lined with a layer of endothelial cells that resist clotting and inflammation, even after centuries of use. This cardiovascular resilience is a key component of the animal's longevity. The kidneys of the Greenland shark are adapted to retain urea and TMAO, preventing these valuable compounds from being lost in the urine. The nephrons, the filtering units of the kidney, are specially modified to reabsorb these molecules with high efficiency. The shark's urine is therefore dilute, conserving water and salt in a stable internal environment. This renal adaptation is essential for life in the deep, cold ocean, where fresh water is scarce and the osmotic gradient is steep. The shark's immune system is also tuned for longevity. It shows a reduced inflammatory response compared to other vertebrates, which may help prevent chronic inflammation that accelerates aging. The white blood cells of the Greenland shark are capable of recognizing and destroying pathogens, but they do so without triggering excessive tissue damage. This balanced immune response likely contributes to the shark's ability to survive for centuries without succumbing to infection or autoimmune disease. The shark's body is a fortress, built not for speed but for endurance. The Greenland shark's teeth are small and numerous, arranged in rows that rotate forward as the outer teeth wear down. The teeth are shaped like blunt spades, ideal for grasping and tearing soft prey rather than slicing through bone. The shark's jaw can extend forward, allowing it to suck in prey from a distance. This feeding mechanism is highly efficient, requiring minimal energy expenditure. The shark can consume large prey items such as seals by using a combination of suction and biting, a technique that has remained unchanged for millions of years. The shark's skin is covered in tiny tooth-like scales called dermal denticles. These denticles are structured to reduce drag and prevent biofouling, the accumulation of algae and barnacles on the skin. The denticles are also covered in a layer of mucus that contains antimicrobial compounds, further protecting the shark from infection. Over centuries, the denticles may wear down, but the shark continuously replaces them through a slow shedding process. This constant renewal ensures that the shark's skin remains effective as a sensory and protective organ throughout its long life. The Greenland shark's buoyancy is finely tuned by the oils in its liver and the density of its cartilaginous skeleton. The shark can adjust its depth by altering the amount of oil in its liver, a process that takes days rather than hours. This slow buoyancy control is sufficient for a creature that does not need to make rapid vertical movements. The shark's body is also slightly negatively buoyant, meaning it tends to sink, but the liver oil counteracts this to keep it neutrally buoyant at depth. The result is a stable, energy-efficient swimming position that requires minimal effort to maintain. The shark's sense of smell is so acute that it can detect a single drop of seal blood diluted in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Its olfactory epithelium, the sensory tissue inside the nostrils, is densely packed with receptor cells that bind to specific odor molecules. The shark constantly samples the water as it swims, comparing the concentration of odors on each side to determine the direction of the source. This chemosensory ability is the shark's primary tool for finding food in the vast, dark ocean. It is a sense that has been refined over millions of years, and it works perfectly in the cold, slow environment the shark inhabits. The Greenland shark's eyes are often infested with parasitic copepods that attach to the cornea, causing partial blindness. Yet the shark does not rely on vision for hunting. Its other senses compensate fully. The copepods themselves are bioluminescent, and their glow may actually attract prey toward the shark's mouth. This unlikely symbiotic relationship, though parasitic, illustrates the shark's remarkable adaptability. Even a disability becomes an advantage in the deep, dark world of the Greenland shark. The shark's blood contains a unique form of hemoglobin that binds oxygen with high affinity, even at low temperatures and low oxygen concentrations. This adaptation ensures that the shark's tissues receive a steady supply of oxygen, even when the water is hypoxic. The hemoglobin is also resistant to denaturation by the high levels of urea in the blood. The shark's red blood cells are large and flexible, able to squeeze through narrow capillaries without rupturing. This optimized oxygen transport system is another pillar of the shark's physiological endurance. The Greenland shark's muscle tissue is rich in myoglobin, the oxygen-storing protein that gives it a deep red color. Myoglobin allows the shark to sustain slow, steady swimming without relying on constant oxygen delivery from the blood. The myoglobin in the shark's muscles is also adapted to function at low temperatures, releasing oxygen slowly to match the low metabolic rate. This stored oxygen is a buffer, allowing the shark to continue swimming even when its heart rate drops during periods of rest. The shark's muscles are thus both a motor and a reservoir, a dual role that supports its century-long hunting strategy. The shark's digestive system is slow and efficient, extracting maximum nutrition from every meal. The stomach can expand to accommodate large prey, and the digestive enzymes are active even at near-freezing temperatures. The shark's intestine is short, but lined with a spiral valve that increases the surface area for absorption. Food may take weeks to pass through the digestive tract, allowing the shark to fully absorb lipids and proteins. This slow digestion is perfectly matched to the shark's infrequent feeding schedule, a rhythm that has sustained it for centuries. The Greenland shark's reproductive organs are also adapted for a slow life history. The testes of males are small and produce sperm in low quantities, but the sperm are highly resilient and can survive for long periods in the female's reproductive tract. Females store sperm in specialized glands, fertilizing their eggs only when conditions are favorable. The ovaries contain a small number of large eggs, each rich in yolk to support the developing embryo. The long gestation and small litter size are not weaknesses but strategies, ensuring that each pup has the best possible chance of survival in a cold, competitive environment. The shark's endocrine system, which controls hormones, is similarly tuned for longevity. Growth hormone levels are low, promoting slow growth and reducing the risk of cancer. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is produced in low amounts, preventing the damaging effects of chronic stress. The thyroid hormone, which regulates metabolism, is also set to a low baseline. Hormonal signaling in the Greenland shark is a study in moderation, a delicate balance that sustains life over centuries without tipping into disease. The Greenland shark's body is a living laboratory of evolutionary biology, and each tissue, each cell, tells a story of adaptation to the most extreme conditions. Scientists continue to study its physiology, hoping to unlock the secrets of its longevity for human medicine. The shark's resistance to cancer, its slow aging, and its ability to repair DNA are all areas of intense research. Every discovery adds a new layer of understanding to this ancient creature's biology. The Greenland shark does not just survive, it thrives, a testament to the power of evolutionary patience. The Greenland shark moves through the water with a deliberateness that seems almost calculated, a stark contrast to the frenetic energy of its prey. Its typical cruising speed is barely half a meter per second, making it the slowest of all sharks relative to its size. This sluggish pace has long puzzled scientists, for the stomachs of these sharks have yielded remains of the fastest and most agile creatures in the ocean, including seals, porpoises, and entire reindeer carcasses. The paradox is so profound that it challenges our fundamental assumptions about predator and prey in the Arctic deep. The shark's hunting strategy is a subject of intense debate, with two competing theories dominating the scientific discourse. The first proposes that the Greenland shark is a masterful ambush predator, relying on stealth and the element of surprise rather than speed. In the black depths of the Arctic winter, during the endless polar night, the shark may lie motionless, its dark body blending seamlessly with the abyss, before lunging upward with a sudden burst of energy no one knew it possessed. Studies of its muscle tissue reveal a mix of slow twitch and fast twitch fibers, suggesting that while it is built for endurance, it can still produce short, explosive movements when necessary. The second theory argues that the Greenland shark is primarily a scavenger, a living vacuum cleaner of the sea floor that consumes whatever dead or dying matter it encounters. The presence of large terrestrial animals like horses and caribou in its stomach supports this view, as these creatures could not possibly have been caught alive in the open ocean. Instead, the shark likely scavenges on carcasses that wash out from rivers or fall through sea ice, drifting down to the depths where the shark patrols in a slow, patient search. Yet the seals and dolphins found inside its stomach present a challenge, for these animals rarely die of natural causes in such numbers, and many show signs of being freshly consumed. To resolve this, researchers have turned to the shark's unique sensory adaptations, including its ability to detect the faintest chemical signals in the water. The Greenland shark can smell a single drop of seal blood from kilometers away, a talent that allows it to locate potential meals without expending any energy in pursuit. It may employ a scavenging strategy for most of its diet, then switch to ambush tactics when a live seal or dolphin unwittingly drifts too close. This dual approach, a blend of opportunism and patience, explains the paradox of a slow creature that nonetheless feeds on swift prey. The shark's movement is not confined to shallow waters, but extends into the abyssal plains of the Atlantic, where it descends to depths of 2,200 meters. It navigates between vastly different environments, from the surface waters of the Arctic to the crushing pressure of the deep sea, a journey that would kill most other fish. This vertical migration appears to be seasonal, driven by the availability of food and the need to avoid the warmest surface temperatures during summer. In the deep, the shark enters a world of eternal darkness, where temperatures hover just above freezing and the pressure reaches over 200 atmospheres. The Greenland shark's diving behavior is a slow, controlled descent, often taking several hours to reach its maximum depth. It does not chase prey in these depths, but rather drifts, using its large liver filled with low-density oils to maintain neutral buoyancy. This allows it to hover effortlessly, scanning the murky water for the bioluminescent glow of a dying fish or the scent of a decaying whale carcass. The shark's ability to switch between shallow and deep environments is a remarkable adaptation, hinting at a physiology that can handle extreme changes in pressure and temperature without distress. The reproductive strategy of the Greenland shark remains one of the greatest mysteries in marine biology, a puzzle that has defied decades of scientific inquiry. The shark is ovoviviparous, meaning the eggs develop and hatch inside the mother's body, and the female gives birth to live young. But the details of this process, from fertilization to parturition, have never been observed in the wild, and no pregnant female has ever been caught in the act of giving birth. The mating behavior of the Greenland shark is entirely unknown, with no documented sightings of courtship or copulation in its natural habitat. Scientists have only fragments of evidence to piece together this reproductive puzzle. A single pregnant female captured in 2016 near Disco Bay, Greenland, contained a litter of 10 pups, each measuring about 40 centimeters in length. The pups were fully formed, with their yolk sacs absorbed, indicating that they were near the end of gestation. The estimated number of pups per litter ranges from 4 to 16, based on a handful of dissected specimens, but the sample size is too small to draw firm conclusions. The gestation period is thought to be exceptionally long, possibly lasting between 8 and 18 years, making it the longest of any vertebrate species. The size of the pups at birth is relatively large compared to other sharks, which suggests that the mother invests heavily in each offspring. A newborn Greenland shark, measuring half a meter in length, emerges fully equipped to survive in the cold, dark waters of the Arctic. But where these pups are born remains a complete mystery, as no nursery areas have ever been found. The young sharks are rarely seen in the wild, leading scientists to suspect that they inhabit deep, inaccessible regions of the ocean, far from the surface where adult sharks are occasionally caught. The absence of nursery areas is a profound gap in our understanding, one that hints at a secret the shark has kept for millions of years. It is possible that the females migrate to specific, unknown locations to give birth, perhaps in the deepest trenches of the North Atlantic, where pressure and darkness provide a safe haven from predators. Alternatively, the pups may be born in shallow, ice-covered fjords during the Arctic winter, where the cover of sea ice and the absence of light protect them from larger predators. But no one has ever found a cluster of newborn Greenland sharks, and the search continues with each passing decade. The Greenland shark's relationship with the parasitic copepod Omatocoita elongata is a strange and intimate symbiosis that has fascinated researchers for generations. This parasite attaches to the shark's cornea, feeding on the tissue and causing partial blindness, often in both eyes. The copepod's body dangles from the shark's eye like a glowing transparent lure, and in the deep dark waters where the shark hunts, this bioluminescent appendage may serve an unexpected purpose. Some scientists have proposed that the light emitted by the parasite actually attracts prey, drawing fish and seals closer to the shark's mouth. The debate over the parasite's role is not settled, with some arguing that the omatocoida is purely detrimental, impairing the shark's vision and causing it to rely more heavily on smell and electroreception. But the shark's eyes are already small and poorly developed, offering limited use in the abyssal darkness where it spends most of its time. The parasite may instead provide a navigational advantage, with the bioluminescence acting as a beacon that helps the shark orient itself in the pitch-black waters. This hypothesis is supported by the observation that the parasite is almost always present in adult Greenland sharks, with nearly every individual over the age of 30 carrying at least one copepod in each eye. The relationship between the shark and its parasite is a delicate balance, one that has evolved over millions of years. The omatocoida does not kill the shark, but it does impair its vision, suggesting that the shark has learned to compensate through other senses. The Greenland shark possesses an extraordinary sense of smell, capable of detecting a single molecule of prey scent in a cubic meter of seawater. It also has a network of electroreceptors called the ampullae of Lorenzini, which can detect the faint electrical fields generated by the muscle contractions of nearby animals. These senses may be more than enough to compensate for the loss of sight, allowing the shark to hunt effectively despite the parasite's presence. The presence of the parasite in both eyes, rather than just one, has led to the theory that the shark may use the bioluminescence as a form of internal communication. In the perpetual darkness of the deep sea, light is a rare and valuable commodity, and the glowing dangle of the parasite could signal the shark's presence to potential mates or rivals. This is purely speculative, but it adds another layer of mystery to the already enigmatic life of the Greenland shark. As the shark glides through the cold waters, barely moving, its body is a living museum of evolutionary adaptations that have allowed it to outlive every civilization on Earth. The slow, deliberate movements, the patient waiting, the reliance on scent and electricity rather than sight. These are not weaknesses, but strengths, honed over 500 million years of natural selection. The shark's ability to survive in both shallow and deep environments, to switch between scavenging and ambush, and to reproduce with such slow efficiency speaks to a creature that has found a niche no other predator can occupy. But the greatest secret of the Greenland shark remains hidden, buried in the unexplored depths of the ocean. The location where it gives birth, the nursery where its pups begin their journey, has never been found. The shark's reproductive strategy is a deliberate and profound secret, perhaps because the female must travel to a place so remote and so hostile that even the most persistent researchers have not been able to follow. The pups are born in darkness, in a region of the ocean that may be forever beyond our reach, and they emerge into a world that is as mysterious as the ancient creature that brought them into existence. The Greenland shark does not chase its prey across the open ocean, for such an expenditure of energy would be unsustainable for a creature living in a world where every calorie must be counted with ruthless precision. Instead, it employs a strategy of patient ambush, drifting silently through the cold water with its mouth slightly open, relying on the water currents to carry the scent of potential prey toward its olfactory organs. When a seal, a fish, or even a passing carcass comes within range, the shark can accelerate with a sudden burst of speed that is surprising for an animal so often described as lethargic, its powerful tail driving it forward in a single, efficient lunge. The shark's teeth are not designed for slicing like those of a great white, but for gripping and tearing, allowing it to extract flesh from large, tough carcasses that sink to the seafloor. This scavenging behavior is essential, as the deep waters of the North Atlantic and Arctic offer few opportunities for active predation, and the shark must take advantage of every food source that drifts into its domain. The sense of smell is the shark's primary tool for locating food, and it can detect the faintest traces of blood or decaying matter from distances that may exceed a kilometer. The olfactory bulbs in its brain are proportionally large, dedicating a significant portion of neural processing to the interpretation of chemical signals in the water. When a scent is detected, the shark begins a slow, meandering swim, following the concentration gradient with a patience that can last for hours or even days. This is not a random wandering, but a deliberate, calculated approach, honed by millions of years of evolution in an environment where food is scarce and unpredictable. The shark's lateral line system, which senses vibrations and pressure changes in the water, further refines its ability to locate struggling prey or the movements of scavengers that have already begun to feed on a carcass. The ampullae of Lorenzini, a network of jelly-filled pores on the shark's snout, allow it to detect the faint electrical fields generated by all living creatures, a sense that becomes especially valuable in the total darkness of the deep ocean. Even when visual cues are absent, the shark can sense the heartbeat of a hidden fish or the muscle contractions of a seal resting on the seabed, and it can approach with a stealth that renders it nearly invisible. This electrosensory ability is also thought to play a role in navigation, as the shark may use the Earth's magnetic field to orient itself during long-distance movements across the featureless seafloor. The Greenland shark is known to migrate vertically, rising into shallower waters at night to feed on prey that moves upward in the water column, and descending again during the day to avoid the warming surface waters. These vertical migrations are not rapid or dramatic, but slow, gradual shifts that match the shark's overall metabolic rhythm, conserving energy while still allowing it to exploit different depth layers. The shark's swimming speed is among the slowest of any fish, with typical cruising speeds of less than 1 kilometer per hour, and it can sustain this pace for months without rest. This extreme slowness is possible because the shark's muscles are adapted for endurance rather than power, with a high proportion of slow-twitch fibers that use oxygen efficiently and produce little lactic acid. The liver, which makes up a large portion of the shark's body weight, is filled with low-density oils that provide buoyancy, reducing the energy required to stay afloat in the dense, cold water. The shark's blood contains high levels of urea and trimethylamine N-oxide, compounds that help it maintain osmotic balance in the salty environment and also serve as natural antifreeze, preventing ice crystals from forming in its tissues. These physiological adaptations allow the Greenland shark to thrive in waters that would kill most other fish, and they also enable it to survive for long periods without food, relying on its large liver reserves to sustain it between meals. When it comes to reproduction, the Greenland shark's strategy is as slow and deliberate as its feeding behavior, and the details of this process remain one of the greatest mysteries in marine biology. Mating has never been observed in the wild, and researchers have only indirect evidence of how it occurs, based on the anatomy of preserved specimens and the occasional capture of pregnant females. The male shark possesses 2 claspers, elongated pelvic fins that are used to transfer sperm to the female, and these claspers are often calcified and covered in small spines, which may help anchor the male during copulation in the strong currents of the deep sea. The female does not have a permanent reproductive tract, but instead releases eggs from her ovaries into the oviduct, where they are fertilized by sperm that the female has stored from a previous mating. This ability to store sperm for extended periods, possibly for years, is a common adaptation among sharks and allows the female to delay fertilization until conditions are favorable for gestation. The gestation period of the Greenland shark is believed to be the longest of any vertebrate, with estimates ranging from 8 to 18 years, though the exact duration is unknown. because pregnant females are so rarely captured. The embryos develop inside the female's body, each enclosed in a thin, transparent egg case that provides protection and nutrients from the yolk sac. The female does not provide any additional nourishment to her developing young, a strategy known as lesototrophic viviparity, meaning that the pups rely entirely on the yolk they are born with, and they must grow and mature within the mother's body until they are large enough to survive independently. The number of pups in a single litter is typically between 5 and 10, but some litters have been recorded with as many as 15, and the size of a newborn shark is between 40 and 60 centimeters in length. The pups are born alive, fully formed, and capable of feeding immediately, emerging from the mother's cloaca in a series of brief, powerful contractions that propel them into the cold, dark water. The location where these births occur is a secret that the Greenland shark has guarded for millennia, and no nursery grounds have ever been identified despite decades of searching. Researchers have proposed several hypotheses, suggesting that the females may migrate to deep, isolated fjords or to the abyssal plains of the Arctic Ocean, where the water pressure is so immense that few other predators can follow. The pups may be born near hydrothermal vents, where the chemical-rich water provides a steady supply of bacteria and small invertebrates that serve as a first meal, but no evidence of such a nursery has been found. Alternatively, the females may give birth in the thick, permanent ice pack of the Arctic, where the pups are hidden beneath the ice and can develop in near-total isolation. The difficulty of locating these nurseries is compounded by the fact that the Greenland shark is a slow-moving, solitary animal that does not congregate in large numbers, and the females likely give birth in remote areas that are far from shipping lanes and research stations. The newborn pups are not immediately independent, but they are also not cared for by the mother, who leaves them to fend for themselves from the moment they are born. The pups have a higher metabolic rate than adults, which allows them to grow more quickly during their first few years, but they still face a long and uncertain journey to adulthood. The young sharks are likely to feed on small crustaceans, squids, and fish that inhabit the deep waters, and they may also consume the eggs and larvae of other fish that drift in the currents. The pups are vulnerable to predation from larger sharks, seals, and possibly even other Greenland sharks, as cannibalism has been observed in the stomachs of adults. The slow growth rate of the species means that it takes decades, possibly more than a century, for a pup to reach sexual maturity, and the age at which a Greenland shark first reproduces is estimated to be around 150 years. The reproductive cycle of the female is equally slow, and she may only give birth once every several years, perhaps as rarely as once a decade, after the long gestation period is complete. The female must invest a tremendous amount of energy into producing a litter of large, well-developed pups, and the long intervals between births allow her to replenish her energy reserves in the food-scarce deep sea. This low reproductive rate is a classic characteristic of a K-selected species, one that prioritizes quality over quantity, producing a small number of offspring that are well adapted to survive in a stable but harsh environment. The Greenland shark's reproductive strategy is a direct consequence of its longevity, as a creature that can live for 400 years does not need to reproduce quickly, but can afford to wait for the perfect moment to pass on its genes. The exact triggers for mating and birth are not understood, but they are likely tied to seasonal changes in water temperature, prey availability, and perhaps even the lunar cycle, which influences the vertical migration of plankton and small fish. The female's body may also respond to the presence of males, which release chemical signals known as pheromones into the water, indicating their readiness to mate. The males have been observed with bite marks and scars on their bodies, suggesting that courtship may involve biting and grappling, as is common in many shark species, but the specific behaviors have never been documented. The female's skin is thicker and more robust than the male's, which may be an adaptation to withstand the rough handling of mating, and the clasper spines of the male may leave lasting wounds that serve as evidence of a successful encounter. The deep, dark waters where the Greenland shark lives are also the realm of the female's most important reproductive secret, the location of the nursery. Some researchers have proposed that the nursery is located in the deep canyons off the coast of Svalbard, where the seafloor is littered with the remains of ancient whale carcasses that provide a steady food source for young sharks. Others have suggested that the pups are born in the waters beneath the Arctic ice cap, where the constant darkness and extreme cold create a refuge that few other predators can tolerate. The fact that no pregnant female has ever been captured in a state of advanced gestation, and no newborn pups have ever been positively identified in the wild, suggests that the birthing grounds are exceptionally remote, perhaps even in the abyssal trenches that reach depths of over 5,000 meters. The Greenland shark's reproductive behavior is a silent, submerged mystery that may only be solved when technology allows us to explore the most inaccessible parts of the ocean. The young sharks grow slowly, and their first few decades are a period of constant learning and adaptation as they learn to navigate the complex currents and find food in the darkness. They do not have the benefit of parental guidance, but instinct and the subtle cues of the environment guide them toward the most productive feeding grounds. The pups are likely to remain in the same general region where they are born for many years, slowly expanding their range as they grow larger and more capable of traveling long distances. The discovery of a nursery would be a monumental breakthrough in our understanding of the species. But for now, the Greenland shark's most intimate and vulnerable moments remain hidden from human eyes, taking place in a world that is as ancient and mysterious as the creature itself. Each newborn pup is a tiny ambassador from a time before civilization, a living link to an era when the oceans were ruled by creatures that moved at a pace beyond our comprehension, and their survival depends on the same patience and resilience that have allowed their species to endure for 500 million years. The Greenland shark's behavior is defined by a profound economy of movement, as every action is calibrated to conserve energy in the cold, nutrient-poor waters of the deep Arctic. They swim at an average speed of less than 1 mile per hour, making them the slowest of all sharks relative to their size, yet this languid pace is perfectly suited to their environment. Their muscle tissue is rich in the compound trimethylamine N-oxide, which stabilizes proteins under pressure and cold, but it also gives their flesh a toxic quality that prevents most predators from consuming them. This chemical defense is a behavioral adaptation in the sense that it allows them to feed on carrion that would be poisonous to other scavengers, such as seals and whales, without fear of competition. When hunting live prey, the Greenland shark relies on stealth and ambush rather than speed, using its dark, almost black coloration to blend into the abyssal gloom. They have been observed remaining motionless for hours, hovering just above the seafloor, waiting for a passing fish or squid to come within range of their wide, forward-facing jaws. Their sense of smell is exceptionally acute, capable of detecting the scent of a seal carcass from several kilometers away, and they often follow the trails of decaying organic matter that drift down from the surface like a slow, steady rain of nutrients. This scavenging behavior is not passive, however, as they actively seek out areas where whales are known to calve or where fishing vessels discard offal, and they have been known to congregate in groups of dozens around a single large carcass. The role of the parasitic copepod Omatocoita elongata, which attaches itself to the cornea of the Greenland shark's eye, adds a remarkable layer of behavioral complexity. The parasite is bioluminescent, emitting a faint greenish glow that may attract curious fish and squid directly toward the shark's mouth. While the copepod often blinds the eye it inhabits, the shark appears to tolerate this loss of vision, perhaps because the lure effect outweighs the cost of reduced sight. Scientists have observed that many Greenland sharks carry at least one of these parasites, and the damaged eye is often covered by a cloudy film, yet the sharks continue to feed successfully in the deep, relying on their other senses. Their feeding strategy also includes a surprising tolerance for cold and pressure, allowing them to exploit prey that other large predators cannot reach. They have been found with the remains of polar bears, reindeer, and even horses in their stomachs, indicating that they are not picky eaters and will consume anything that sinks into their domain. In the waters around Svalbard and Greenland, they are known to follow the migrations of harp seals, though it remains unclear whether they actively hunt seals or simply scavenge those that die naturally. A study of stomach contents from the 1990s revealed that Greenland sharks consume a wide variety of fish, including cod, haddock, and halibut, as well as squid, crabs, and even the occasional seabird that has strayed too far from land. The reproductive behavior of the Greenland shark is one of the most elusive aspects of its biology, with no direct observations of mating or birth ever recorded in the wild. Based on the anatomy of captured specimens, scientists believe that fertilization is internal, with males using their claspers to transfer sperm into the female's reproductive tract. The females are ovoviviparous, meaning that the eggs develop and hatch inside the mother's body, and the young are born alive, typically measuring 38 to 42 centimeters in length. What is truly extraordinary is the estimated gestation period, which may last anywhere from 8 to 18 years, making it the longest known pregnancy of any vertebrate animal on Earth. This prolonged gestation imposes a tremendous metabolic burden on the female, who must carry the developing pups for more than a decade while continuing to forage in a food-scarce environment. During this time, the embryos rely on a yolk sac for nourishment, but they may also absorb nutrients from the mother's uterine fluids, a process known as oophagy. The slow growth rate of the embryos is consistent with the shark's overall life history, which prioritizes endurance over speed. It is believed that females only give birth every few years, perhaps every 2 to 5 years, because the long gestation and the energy required for pregnancy limit their reproductive output. The birthing process itself is thought to occur in deep, sheltered waters, such as the fjords of Greenland or the continental slopes of the Arctic Ocean, where the pups are less vulnerable to predators. No nursery grounds have ever been identified, but some researchers hypothesize that the young may be born in areas with dense concentrations of gelatinous plankton, which provide a rich food source for the tiny sharks. After birth, the pups are entirely independent, receiving no parental care, and they must immediately begin hunting for small invertebrates and fish larvae. The first few years of life are perilous, and mortality is likely high, but those that survive benefit from the same slow metabolism that allows adults to live for centuries. The Greenland shark's daily movements are governed by a vertical migration pattern that varies with the seasons and the availability of prey. In the summer months, when the sun never sets in the high Arctic, they tend to remain in deeper water, perhaps to avoid the bright light that can damage their sensitive eyes. In winter, when darkness covers the polar ocean for weeks at a time, they often ascend to shallower depths, sometimes even venturing into the intertidal zone where they have been caught in fishing nets near the surface. This behavior suggests that they are opportunistic feeders, taking advantage of any ecological niche that offers a meal, regardless of depth. Social interactions among Greenland sharks are minimal, as they are solitary creatures that only come together around abundant food sources. They do not form schools or packs, and there is no evidence of any complex social structure, such as dominance hierarchies or cooperative hunting. When multiple sharks gather around a carcass, they feed without apparent conflict, each taking its turn to tear off a piece of flesh with their rotating, backward-pointing teeth. This placid demeanor extends to their interactions with other species, as they are rarely aggressive toward divers or researchers, and they seem to lack the territorial instincts common in many other large sharks. The sense of electroreception, mediated by the ampullae of Lorenzini on their snouts, allows Greenland sharks to detect the faint electrical fields produced by the muscle contractions of hidden prey. This ability is especially valuable in the perpetual darkness of the deep sea, where vision is nearly useless. They can sense a fish buried in the sediment or a squid drifting in the water column, and they use this information to orient their attacks with precision. Even when blind from the parasitic copepod, a shark can still hunt effectively using its electroreceptors, lateral line, and keen sense of smell. The Greenland shark's behavior is also characterized by an extraordinary tolerance for cold, enabling them to inhabit waters that are often below 0 degrees Celsius. Their body fluids contain high concentrations of urea and trimethylamine N oxide, which act as antifreeze and prevent ice crystals from forming in their tissues. This physiological adaptation allows them to remain active even in the icy waters beneath the sea ice, where other predators would be forced to retreat. They have been tracked by satellite tags moving beneath the pack ice of the Fram Strait, traveling hundreds of kilometers in search of food, and their movements are slow but relentless, like a glacier grinding across a continent. The mating ritual of the Greenland shark, if it exists, has never been witnessed. But scientists infer that it likely involves the male biting the female's pectoral fins or body to maintain position during copulation. Bite marks on the bodies of adult females, consistent with the tooth patterns of males, suggest that such behavior does occur, as it does in many other shark species. These scars are often found on the flanks and around the gills, and they heal slowly due to the cold water, leaving permanent evidence of the encounter. The act of mating probably takes place in the deep, at depths where light is absent, and it may be a rare event, given the shark's wide dispersion and low population density. The slow pace of life extends to the shark's digestion, which is equally leisurely. A single large meal, such as the carcass of a seal or a whale, can take weeks to fully process, with the nutrients being absorbed gradually into the shark's tissues. This allows them to go for long periods without eating, perhaps for months at a time, when food is scarce. Their stomachs are highly elastic, capable of expanding to accommodate prey that is larger than the shark's own body. and they have been known to regurgitate indigestible items such as polar bear claws or pieces of plastic after the nutrients have been extracted. The Greenland shark's behavioral repertoire also includes a surprising ability to slow its heart rate and metabolism even further when resting, entering a state of torpor that conserves energy. During these periods, they may lie motionless on the seafloor for days, with their gill slits barely moving, as if they were statues carved from the dark water around them. This behavior is not hibernation, which is a seasonal response, but rather a facultative strategy that they can employ whenever conditions are unfavorable. It is a testament to their resilience that they can survive in an environment where the energy rewards are so low and the costs of movement are so high. The young sharks, once they reach a length of about 1 meter, begin to shift their diet from small invertebrates to larger fish and marine mammals. This transition is gradual, and it is driven by the availability of prey rather than by any fixed developmental schedule. They have been observed following schools of capelin and herring, which migrate through the Arctic waters in massive aggregations, and they may also feed on the eggs of these fish when they spawn on the seafloor. The lack of a nursery ground means that the young must compete with adults for the same resources, but the adults' slow metabolism and low energy requirements reduce the intensity of competition. The acoustic environment of the deep sea plays a role in the shark's behavior, as they are sensitive to low-frequency sounds, such as the calls of whales or the noise of a ship's propeller. They have been known to avoid areas with high levels of anthropogenic noise, suggesting that they can perceive and respond to these disturbances. In the pristine waters of the Arctic, where human activity is still limited, they rely on the natural soundscape to locate potential prey, such as the scratching of a seal on ice or the splashing of a fish at the surface. This auditory sensitivity is part of a broader sensory toolkit that includes chemoreception, mechanoreception, and electroreception, making them one of the most perceptive predators in the ocean. The reproductive strategy of the Greenland shark, with its extreme longevity and delayed maturation, is a classic example of a K-selected life history where individuals invest heavily in a few offspring over a long lifespan. This strategy is successful in a stable but resource-poor environment, where the chances of a pup surviving to adulthood are relatively low, but the long lifespan of the adults ensures that the population can persist even with low reproductive rates. The trade-off is that the species is highly vulnerable to any increase in mortality, such as from overfishing or climate change, because it takes many decades to replace a single breeding individual. The youngest known mature female was estimated to be 150 years old, and the oldest may be over 400 years, meaning that a single shark can witness the rise and fall of entire civilizations without ever leaving its home waters. The Greenland shark's behavior in the presence of potential mates is likely to be subtle, perhaps involving chemical cues released into the water to signal readiness. Males may follow these scent trails for hundreds of kilometers, using their olfactory senses to track a receptive female across the deep sea. Once found, the female may either accept or reject the male's advances, though the exact triggers for acceptance remain unknown. The long gestation period means that a female is only available for mating once every several years, making each successful encounter a critical event for the population's genetic diversity. The pups, after birth, begin their own slow journey through the ocean, with no knowledge of the world above the surface. They do not experience the touch of their mother, nor do they hear the calls of their siblings. The first months of their lives are spent in the deep, where the temperature is constant and the pressure is immense, and they must learn to navigate using the Earth's magnetic field, which provides a stable reference in the featureless darkness. This ability, known as magnetoreception, has been documented in other sharks and is likely present in Greenland sharks as well, allowing them to maintain a sense of direction during their long, drifting migrations. The behavioral patterns of the Greenland shark are not static, but they change subtly with the seasons, as the Arctic experiences dramatic shifts in light and temperature. In the summer, when the sun never sets, the sharks tend to remain in the deeper, cooler waters, perhaps to avoid the stress of the bright light that can damage their eyes. In the winter, when the polar night descends, they ascend to shallower depths, where they can hunt for fish that are also migrating upward to feed on the limited plankton. This vertical movement is a daily rhythm in many marine animals, but for the Greenland shark, it is a seasonal rhythm, synchronized with the long cycles of the polar year. The Greenland shark's feeding behavior also includes a unique form of scavenging that involves following the tracks of large marine mammals, such as bowhead whales, and feeding on the remains of their prey. They have been observed swimming alongside whales, not as predators but as companions, waiting for the whale to die or to leave behind a partially eaten carcass. This relationship is not symbiotic, but it is opportunistic, and it allows the sharks to access a steady supply of high-energy food without expending the energy required to hunt. In the whaling era, when whalers killed hundreds of bowhead whales, the Greenland sharks would appear in large numbers to feed on the floating carcasses, and they were often caught in the whalers' nets, giving rise to the myth that they were dangerous to humans. The truth is that the Greenland shark is one of the least aggressive sharks towards humans, with no confirmed attacks on living people. Their slow movement and deep-water habitat make encounters with divers extremely rare, and when they are caught in fishing gear, they are often docile, barely struggling as they are hauled to the surface. This placid behavior is a reflection of their evolutionary strategy, which places a premium on energy conservation and avoids any unnecessary expenditure of effort. They do not have the need to defend territory or to establish dominance, because in the deep sea there is no competition for space, only for food, and food is too scarce to waste energy on fighting. The reproduction of the Greenland shark is a slow, patient process that mirrors the entire life cycle of the species. The female carries her pups for over a decade, and when she finally gives birth, she does so in a place that is so remote and so deep that no human has ever witnessed it. The pups emerge into a world of darkness and cold, and they begin their own slow journey, which will last for centuries. They will never know the warmth of the sun, nor the touch of another creature, but they will inherit the ancient knowledge of their species encoded in their genes and in the subtle cues of the ocean. The Greenland shark's behavior is not a story of action, but of endurance, and it is a story that is still being written, one slow heartbeat at a time. The Greenlandic name for this creature is ekaluswak, a word that carries the weight of generations. The Inuit people of Greenland and northern Canada have known the Greenland shark for centuries, long before any European naturalist set eyes upon it. Their relationship with the shark was not one of fear or reverence alone, but of practical necessity shaped by the harsh Arctic environment. Inuit hunters would catch the Greenland shark through holes cut in the sea ice, using baited hooks made from bone or iron. The sharks were drawn to the scent of seal or whale meat, and once hooked, they were hauled up onto the ice with great effort. The meat of the Greenland shark is toxic in its raw state, containing high levels of trimethylamine oxide that causes a dangerous intoxication similar to severe drunkenness. The Inuit learned to process the meat by burying it in the ground for several months, allowing the toxins to leach out, or by drying it in the wind. The liver of the Greenland shark was perhaps the most valuable part of the animal. The liver oil was rich in vitamin A and other nutrients, and it served as a vital source of fuel for lamps and a lubricant for tools. The oil also had medicinal applications, used to treat wounds and to soothe aching joints in the unforgiving Arctic cold. The Inuit harvested the liver with care, recognizing that one large shark could provide enough oil to sustain a family through the long winter months. The skin of the Greenland shark was also put to use, its coarse texture making it ideal for sanding wood and for polishing bone tools. The teeth were carved into knives and scrapers, and the vertebrae were used as beads or as weights for fishing lines. Nothing was wasted, and the shark was respected as a provider of life-sustaining resources in an environment where survival was never guaranteed. Western science first formally encountered the Greenland shark during the early 19th century, when Danish and Norwegian expeditions mapped the coastlines of Greenland. The shark was given its scientific name, Somniosus microcephalus, by the Danish naturalist Henrik Nicolai Kreuer in 1838. The name somniosus means sleepy in Latin, a reference to the sluggish behavior that early observers noted in the species. The species name microcephalus means small head, which describes the shark's proportionately small head relative to its massive body. Early naturalists were struck by the shark's size and its strange, almost prehistoric appearance. They described its blunt snout, its small eyes, and its dark, mottled skin that seemed to blend with the deep waters it inhabited. The first specimens brought back to Europe were dissected and studied, but the scientists of the 19th century had no way to measure the age of such a creature. They assumed that the Greenland shark, like other sharks, lived for a few decades at most, perhaps reaching 30 or 40 years before dying of old age or predation. This assumption persisted for over a century. The Greenland shark was considered a slow-growing, relatively short-lived species similar to other large sharks like the great white shark or the tiger shark. No one had reason to question this belief because the tools to measure age in deep-sea fish did not yet exist. The shark's lack of otoliths, the ear bones used to age many fish, made traditional age estimation impossible. Scientists could only guess, and their guesses were based on the limited knowledge of the time. The turning point came in the 2010s, when a team of researchers led by the Danish biologist Julius Nielsen began a systematic study of the Greenland shark's age. Nielsen was a marine biologist at the University of Copenhagen, and he had access to a collection of Greenland sharks that had been caught as bycatch in scientific surveys and by commercial fisheries. The sharks had been frozen and stored, their bodies preserved for future study. Nielsen and his colleagues realized that the eye lens of the Greenland shark might hold the key to unlocking its age. The lens of a vertebrate eye is composed of proteins that crystallize during embryonic development and remain unchanged throughout the animal's life. The center of the lens, the nucleus, is formed before birth and contains carbon atoms that were present in the environment at that time. These carbon atoms include a small fraction of the radioactive isotope carbon-14, which decays at a known rate over thousands of years. By measuring the amount of carbon-14 in the lens nucleus, scientists can determine when the animal was born. The technique of radiocarbon dating is well established in archaeology, where it is used to date ancient organic materials. But applying it to a living animal required a different approach. Nielsen and his team used the lens nucleus because it is metabolically inert after formation, meaning that no new carbon is added to it after birth. The carbon-14 in the lens nucleus reflects the atmospheric levels of carbon-14 at the time of the shark's birth, and these levels have varied over time due to natural processes and, more recently, nuclear weapons testing. The team faced a significant challenge. The Greenland shark's lifespan was so long that the carbon-14 levels in its lens nucleus might be close to the detection limits of the equipment. They also needed a reference curve of historical carbon-14 levels in the North Atlantic, which they obtained from known sources such as tree rings and ocean sediments. By comparing the carbon-14 levels in the shark's lens to this reference curve, they could estimate the shark's birth year. The results were published in the journal Science in August 2016. The study analyzed 28 female Greenland sharks, all caught as bycatch in the waters around Greenland. The largest shark in the study was a female measuring over 5 meters in length. The radiocarbon dating of her eye lens nucleus indicated that she was between 272 and 512 years old, with a median estimate of 392 years. This meant that she was born sometime between the early 1500s and the early 1700s, depending on the exact interpretation of the data. The scientific community was stunned. No other vertebrate animal was known to live for such a long time. The oldest known land animal, the giant tortoise, can live for over 150 years, and the bowhead whale, a marine mammal, has been documented to live for over 200 years. The Greenland shark's potential lifespan of 400 years or more was unprecedented. It forced biologists to rethink the limits of aging in vertebrates and to consider how a cold-blooded creature could achieve such extraordinary longevity. The reaction from the scientific community was one of cautious excitement. Many researchers praised the study for its innovative use of radiocarbon dating, but some questioned the assumptions underlying the age estimates. The main uncertainty was the rate at which the lens nucleus forms in the Greenland shark, and whether the carbon-14 levels in the lens accurately reflect the atmospheric levels at birth. Nielsen and his colleagues addressed these concerns by using multiple independent methods to calibrate their results, including the bomb pulse from nuclear weapons testing in the 1950s and 1960s, which left a distinct spike in carbon-14 levels in the environment. The bomb pulse provided a convenient marker for younger sharks. Sharks born after the 1950s had elevated carbon-14 levels in their lens nuclei, allowing the team to confirm that their method worked for recent births. For older sharks, the team relied on the natural decay of carbon-14 over time, which is slower and requires more precise measurements. The wide range of 272 to 512 years reflects the statistical uncertainty of the radiocarbon dating, but the median estimate of 392 years is considered the most probable age for the oldest specimen. The implications of a vertebrate living for 400 years are profound. It means that the Greenland shark has a growth rate so slow that it may not reach sexual maturity until it is over 100 years old. This has major consequences for conservation, because the species is extremely vulnerable to overfishing. A shark that takes a century to reproduce cannot sustain high levels of mortality, and the population may take centuries to recover from any decline. The discovery also raised questions about the mechanisms of aging in the Greenland shark. Biologists are now studying the shark's genome, its metabolism, and its cold water environment to understand how it avoids the cellular damage that causes aging in other animals. The shark's habitat, with temperatures near freezing, may slow down all metabolic processes, including the accumulation of molecular damage. The shark's low metabolic rate may also reduce the production of reactive oxygen species, which are thought to contribute to aging. The 2016 study did not answer all the questions. It left open the possibility that some Greenland sharks may live even longer than 400 years. The sample size was small, and the largest sharks in the study were all females. It is unknown whether males live as long as females, or whether the oldest sharks are yet to be found in the deep waters of the Arctic. The study also did not examine the effects of environmental factors such as food availability or ocean temperature on the shark's lifespan. The Greenland shark's longevity is not just a biological curiosity, it is a window into the past. The oldest specimen in the 2016 study was born around the year 1500, give or take a few decades. This shark was already alive when the first European explorers began to map the coast of Greenland. It was alive when the Ming dynasty ruled China, when the Renaissance was flourishing in Europe, and when the Aztec Empire was at its peak. It was alive when William Shakespeare was writing his plays, when the Mayflower sailed to America, and when the Industrial Revolution began. The shark has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the spread of human populations across the globe, and the transformation of the oceans by industrial fishing. It has swum through waters that were once teeming with whales and now are filled with plastic debris. It has survived through centuries of climate change, from the Little Ice Age to the warming of the present day. And it is still swimming, deep beneath the Arctic ice, carrying the secrets of its own history in its bones. Those secrets remained locked within its tissues for centuries, until the tools of modern science finally found a way to read them. In 2016, a team of researchers led by marine biologist Julius Nielsen at the University of Copenhagen published a landmark study in the journal Science. They had developed a method to determine the age of Greenland sharks by analyzing the proteins in their eye lenses. The lens of a vertebrate eye grows throughout life, but its core is formed before birth and remains metabolically inert, preserving the carbon from the shark's earliest days. The team used radiocarbon dating to measure the amount of carbon-14 in the lens core. Carbon-14 is a radioactive isotope that decays at a known rate, and its concentration in the atmosphere and ocean has varied over time due to natural processes and, more recently, nuclear weapons testing. By comparing the carbon-14 signature in the shark's lens to a well-established calibration curve of historical marine radiocarbon levels, the scientists could estimate when the shark was born. The technique required careful correction for the slow turnover of carbon in the deep, cold waters where the Greenland shark lives, a factor that had stumped previous studies. The results were astonishing. The oldest shark examined in the study was estimated to be approximately 392 years old, with a 95% confidence interval ranging from 272 to 512 years. This mean age of 392 years meant that the shark was born sometime around the year 1620, give or take a few decades. But the upper bound of the confidence interval extended back to 1504, allowing the possibility that the shark was born in the early 1500s. As the narrative of the previous passage suggests. The uncertainty reflects the inherent variability in radiocarbon dating and the challenges of calibrating the marine reservoir effect in the Arctic. The discovery immediately redefined our understanding of vertebrate longevity. Before this study, the longest-lived vertebrate was thought to be the bowhead whale, with a maximum lifespan of about 211 years. The Greenland shark more than doubled that record. The oldest individual in the study was already a mature adult when it was captured, meaning it had likely reached sexual maturity at around 150 years of age, a milestone that no other known vertebrate approaches. This slow growth and late reproduction are hallmarks of a species that has evolved to thrive in a stable, cold, and resource-poor environment. The shark's body itself tells a story of this protracted existence. Its tissues are composed of a unique combination of proteins and fats that resist the accumulation of damage over time. The eye lens proteins in particular are extraordinarily stable, with a turnover rate so slow that they can retain the original carbon from the shark's birth for centuries. This stability is what allowed the researchers to peer into the past, but it also means that the shark's body is adapted to a pace of life that is almost unimaginable to a human. Its heart beats only a few times per minute, and its metabolism is so low that it can survive for months between meals. The shark's longevity is not merely a matter of slow biochemistry, it is also a product of its environment. The deep, cold waters of the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans provide a steady thermal refuge. At temperatures near the freezing point of seawater, chemical reactions slow down dramatically, reducing the rate of oxidative damage to cells. The Greenland shark's habitat is also remarkably stable over geological timescales, with little variation in temperature or salinity compared to surface waters. This stability has allowed the shark to live in a kind of temporal suspension, where the passage of a century barely registers in its physiological rhythms. The shark that was born around 1500 has therefore witnessed a vast sweep of human history from the perspective of the deep. It was already a century old when the first European whalers began to exploit the waters of the North Atlantic in the 1600s, hunting bowhead whales and right whales nearly to extinction. The shark would have swum through waters that became increasingly noisy with the sound of ship engines and the rumble of industrial fishing vessels. It would have experienced the gradual warming of the ocean that began with the end of the Little Ice Age in the mid-19th century, a trend that has accelerated dramatically in the last 100 years. The Little Ice Age itself was a period of intense cold that lasted from roughly 1300 to 1850, with its coldest phase occurring between 1600 and 1800. For a shark born in 1500, this meant that much of its early life was spent in waters that were even colder than today. The sea ice around Greenland was more extensive, and the deep currents that carry oxygen and nutrients to the Arctic were more sluggish. The shark's slow metabolism would have been an advantage in such a resource-limited world, allowing it to survive on the scarce food available in the deep, dark waters. By the time the shark reached its 200th year, around 1700, the first scientific expeditions were beginning to map the ocean depths. The shark's home, the deep sea, was still a complete mystery to humans. It would be another century before the first oceanographic surveys, and another 2 centuries before the first submersibles would glimpse the creatures of the abyss. The shark lived in a world that humans could not see, and it remains largely invisible to us even today, except when it is accidentally caught in fishing nets or when it rises to the surface in the shallow fjords of Greenland. The shark's experience of the 20th century was shaped by human activity in ways that are only now becoming clear. The introduction of persistent organic pollutants, such as PCBs and DDT, into the ocean after World War II has left a chemical signature in the tissues of marine animals. Studies of Greenland shark muscle have found elevated levels of these contaminants, which accumulate in the shark's fatty tissues over its long life. The shark that was born in 1500 has therefore absorbed the chemical legacy of the industrial age, storing in its body a record of the pollution that humans have released into the sea. The shark's eye lenses also contain a record of its diet. By analyzing the stable isotopes of carbon and nitrogen in the lens layers, scientists can reconstruct what the shark ate at different stages of its life. Preliminary studies suggest that young Greenland sharks feed on small, soft-bodied invertebrates near the seafloor, while older individuals shift to a diet of larger prey, including seals, fish, and even polar bear carcasses that sink to the deep. The shark's slow growth means that these dietary shifts happen over decades, not years, and the lens layers preserve a time series of this transition. The discovery of the Greenland shark's longevity has profound implications for conservation. Because the shark takes 150 years to reach sexual maturity, any population that is heavily fished could take centuries to recover. The species is currently listed as near threatened on the IUCN Red List, but the true status of its populations is unknown. The shark is caught as bycatch in trawl fisheries for halibut and redfish, and in some areas it is still targeted for its liver oil, which was once used for lamp fuel and industrial lubricants. The slow life history of the shark means that even low levels of mortality can have a lasting impact. The shark's existence also forces us to reconsider our own relationship with time. A human lifespan of 80 years is a brief flicker compared to the 400-year journey of the Greenland shark. In the shark's world, a single human generation is barely a chapter in its own life. The shark has seen the rise of the scientific method, the birth of the industrial age, the explosion of the human population, and the transformation of the ocean from a vast, unknown wilderness into a managed, exploited, and polluted environment. It has been a silent witness to all of this, and it continues to swim, indifferent to the empires that have risen and fallen above the waves. The methods used by Nielsen and his team have opened a new window into the past. By analyzing the eye lenses of other long-lived fish, such as the orange roughy and the rockfish, scientists are beginning to build a more complete picture of how marine life responds to environmental change. The Greenland shark, however, remains the most extreme example, a creature that has lived for centuries and may still live for centuries more. The oldest shark in the 2016 study was not the oldest ever found. It was simply the oldest that the researchers had the chance to examine. Somewhere in the deep waters of the Arctic, there may be a shark that was born before the fall of the Roman Empire, or before the construction of the Great Wall of China. The search for such an individual is ongoing. Researchers are now using the same radiocarbon technique to analyze the lenses of sharks that were caught decades ago and stored in museum collections. These specimens, preserved in formalin or alcohol, still contain the carbon from the shark's birth, and they can be dated even after many years of storage. The oldest dates from these historic samples may push the maximum lifespan of the Greenland shark even further, perhaps beyond 500 years. If that is true, then the shark born in 1500 is not the oldest, but simply one of many ancient individuals that still patrol the deep. The Greenland shark's longevity is a reminder that the ocean holds secrets that we are only beginning to uncover. The shark's body is a living archive, a chronicle of the last half-millennium written in the language of proteins and isotopes. It has survived the Little Ice Age, the rise of whaling, the Industrial Revolution, the Atomic Age, and the warming of the present day. It may well survive the next century of human-driven change, as long as the deep, cold waters of the Arctic remain habitable. But the shark's slow life history makes it vulnerable to rapid changes, and the ongoing warming of the ocean could alter the food webs that sustain it. The shark is a creature of time, not of speed. It moves through the water at a pace of less than 1 mile per hour, conserving energy for a journey that lasts centuries. It does not need to chase its prey. It simply waits, and the prey eventually comes to it. This strategy of patience has served the Greenland shark for thousands of generations, and it has allowed it to outlive every human civilization that has ever existed. The shark is still swimming, deep beneath the Arctic ice, carrying the secrets of its own history in its bones. Those secrets are now being read, one eye lens at a time, by scientists who are themselves only a moment in the shark's long life. The discovery of the Greenland shark's extraordinary age began with a chance encounter in the cold waters off the coast of Greenland. In the early 2000s, marine biologist John Stephenson of the University of Copenhagen recognized that the Greenland shark, often caught as bycatch in trawls, might hold a secret in its tissues. He and his team started collecting samples from sharks that had been accidentally killed by fishermen, reasoning that the eyes of these animals could provide a record of their birth. The lens of the eye is composed of proteins that are metabolically inert, meaning they are formed at the time of the shark's birth and remain unchanged throughout its life. By analyzing the carbon-14 content in these proteins, scientists could apply a technique known as radiocarbon dating to determine the shark's age. The method relied on a global marker that had been deposited in the atmosphere during the mid-20th century. Between 1955 and 1963, above-ground nuclear tests released a massive pulse of carbon-14 into the atmosphere, which was then absorbed by the oceans and incorporated into the tissues of living organisms. This bomb pulse created a distinct timeline. Any animal that hatched after 1955 would have a higher carbon-14 content in its eye lenses, while those born before the tests would have lower levels. The Greenland shark's eye lenses, being made of crystallized proteins, preserved this isotopic signature with remarkable fidelity. By comparing the carbon-14 levels in the sharks to a known calibration curve derived from tree rings and other records, the team could estimate the age of each individual. The results were startling. In a 2016 study published in the journal Science, the team announced that the largest Greenland shark they examined, a female measuring just over 5 meters in length, had an estimated age of 392 years, with a potential range of 272 to 512 years. This made the Greenland shark the longest-lived vertebrate known to science, surpassing the bowhead whale, which can live for over 200 years, and the Galapagos tortoise, which rarely exceeds 150 years. The shark had been born, according to the most likely estimate, sometime around the year 1624, during the reign of King James I of England and the height of the Ming dynasty in China. It was already a mature adult when Isaac Newton published his Principia in 1687, and it had been swimming in the Arctic depths for more than a century before the American Revolution began. The discovery forced a profound rethinking of the shark's life history. Prior to this study, little was known about the Greenland shark's growth rate, age at maturity, or reproductive cycle. The radiocarbon data revealed that the shark grows at an astonishingly slow pace, roughly 1 centimeter per year, and does not reach sexual maturity until it is at least 150 years old. This means that a female shark born in the 21st century will not be capable of reproducing until the year 2150 or later, long after the current generation of scientists has passed away. The shark's reproductive strategy is one of extreme patience. It invests its energy into a long life rather than rapid reproduction, producing only a few pups at a time after a gestation period that may last several years. The implications for conservation are significant. Because the Greenland shark is so slow to mature and reproduce, any population decline caused by fishing or environmental change could take centuries to reverse. The species is currently listed as near threatened on the IUCN Red List, but its true status is difficult to assess because of the scarcity of data. The shark has been hunted for centuries, primarily for its liver oil, which was used in lamps and as a lubricant before the advent of petroleum. Even today, it is caught as bycatch in trawl fisheries and occasionally targeted for its meat, which must be fermented and dried to remove toxic levels of trimethylamine oxide. The shark's slow life history makes it especially vulnerable to overfishing, as it cannot recover quickly from losses. The discovery of the Greenland shark's age also reshaped our understanding of the Arctic ecosystem. This shark is a top predator in the deep waters of the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans, feeding on fish, seals, and even carrion from whales. Its slow metabolism allows it to survive in a cold environment where food is scarce and seasonal. The shark's presence in the deep, dark waters of the fjords and continental slopes suggests that it has occupied this niche for thousands of years, possibly since the last ice age. The radiocarbon dating of its eye lenses gives us a direct window into the history of the Arctic itself, because the shark's tissues contain records of the carbon that was present in the ocean when it was born. The study also opened a new chapter in the relationship between humans and this ancient creature. For centuries, the Greenland shark was known to Inuit and other Arctic peoples who used its skin for boots and its teeth for tools, but its true age was never suspected. The shark appears in the folklore of Greenland and Iceland as a creature of mystery and danger, often associated with the goddess of the sea or with omens of death. Modern science has now given it a new kind of reverence, not as a monster, but as a living archive of the planet's recent history. The shark that was born during the reign of King James III has witnessed the rise of industrial civilization, the explosion of human population, and the accelerating changes of the Anthropocene. The scientists who conducted the study were themselves humbled by the scale of the shark's lifespan. Julius Nielsen, a doctoral student at the University of Copenhagen and the lead author of the 2016 paper, described the work as a journey into deep time. He and his colleagues had to develop new methods for extracting and analyzing the eye lenses because the sharks were often large and difficult to handle, and the samples had to be kept frozen to preserve the isotopic integrity. The team also had to account for the possibility that the carbon-14 in the lens might have been contaminated by the shark's deep-sea environment, where carbon from old organic matter could skew the results. They used multiple calibration curves and cross-checked their findings with growth rings on the shark's vertebrae, which, though less reliable, provided additional support for the slow growth rate. The work has since been replicated by other researchers who have confirmed the extreme longevity of the Greenland shark. A 2022 study by a team from the University of Greenland and the Greenland Institute of Natural Resources used similar radiocarbon techniques on a larger sample of sharks and found consistent results, with the oldest individuals again exceeding 400 years. These findings have solidified the Greenland shark's status as the longest-lived vertebrate, and they have spurred new investigations into the genetic and physiological mechanisms that allow it to resist aging. The shark's genome, which is now being sequenced, may hold clues to the processes of cellular repair and metabolic regulation that enable such a long life. The Greenland shark thus stands as a living bridge between human history and the deep past. It has outlived every major empire, every war, every scientific revolution, and every technological transformation that has defined the modern world. The shark was already an adult when the first European explorers mapped the coast of Greenland in the 16th century, and it has since witnessed the colonization of the Arctic, the expansion of whaling, and the onset of climate change. Its body carries the memory of the ocean as it was before the Industrial Age, before the burning of fossil fuels altered the chemistry of the sea. The carbon-14 that was deposited in its eye lenses during the 1960s is a permanent record of the nuclear age, a time when humanity tested its most destructive weapons and inadvertently left a marker in the tissues of the world's oldest creatures. The shark's longevity also challenges our own sense of time. Human civilization, for all its achievements, is a fleeting phenomenon compared to the life of this single animal. The Greenland shark does not hurry, does not plan, does not worry about the future. It simply exists, moving slowly through the cold darkness, feeding when it can, growing at a pace that is almost imperceptible. Its life is measured in centuries, not in years, and its death when it comes will be a quiet event, unnoticed by the world. The shark does not know that it is old, and it does not know that its age has been discovered by creatures who live for only a fraction of its own existence. The scientists who study the Greenland shark are themselves part of the same brief moment in time that the shark has witnessed. They are the first generation of humans to understand the true scale of the shark's life, and they are also the first to see the threats that the shark now faces. The warming of the Arctic waters, driven by climate change, could alter the distribution of the shark's prey and force it to adapt to conditions that it has never experienced in its long history. The shark's slow growth and late maturity mean that it cannot quickly adjust to rapid environmental shifts. If the ocean warms too fast, the food webs that sustain the shark could collapse, leaving it with nowhere to go. Yet the Greenland shark has survived many changes before. It lived through the end of the last ice age, when the glaciers retreated and the sea level rose. It lived through the medieval warm period and the Little Ice Age, both of which altered the temperature and productivity of the Arctic Ocean. It has outlasted the rise and fall of human empires, from the Roman Empire to the British Empire to the Soviet Union. The shark's resilience is not a guarantee of its future, but it is a testament to the power of a slow, patient life. The shark does not fight against the current. It simply waits, and the current carries it forward. The discovery of the Greenland shark's age has become a touchstone for our understanding of time and mortality. It reminds us that the natural world operates on scales that are far beyond our own. The shark is not a relic of the past. It is a living presence in the present, and it will continue to swim through the deep waters of the Arctic for centuries to come, unless humans change the world too quickly for it to keep up. The scientists who read its secrets are like archaeologists of the living, uncovering the biography of an animal that has been writing its own history for 400 years or more. And so the Greenland shark endures, its slow heartbeat a metronome for the deep ocean. It does not know that it has been studied, that its age has been calculated, that its name appears in scientific journals. It does not know that it has outlived every human civilization that has ever existed. It simply continues to swim 1 mile per hour through the cold, dark water, waiting for the next meal, the next century, the next shift in the world above. The shark is a creature of time, and time is the only thing that has ever been on its side. In the cold waters of the North Atlantic and the Arctic Ocean, a silent giant moves with deliberate patience. This is the Greenland shark, a creature whose domain stretches from the surface down to depths of 2,200 meters, spanning an immense geographic range that includes the waters off Canada, Greenland, Iceland, Norway, and the northern reaches of Russia. It is one of the most widely distributed deep-water sharks in the polar regions, yet its presence is rarely seen by human eyes. The shark's habitat is defined by the cold, dark waters of the continental shelves and slopes, where temperatures hover near freezing year-round. The Greenland shark does not stay at a fixed depth throughout the year, but instead performs seasonal vertical migrations that follow the rhythms of the Arctic ecosystem. During the summer months, when the sun barely sets and the surface waters warm slightly, the sharks tend to move into shallower depths, often between 100 and 500 meters. In the winter, under the cover of polar night, they descend to the depths, sometimes exceeding 200 meters, where the water remains stable and cold. These migrations are driven by the movement of prey, particularly the schools of Arctic cod and Greenland halibut that shift with the seasonal thermal layers of the ocean. The prey items of the Greenland shark are remarkably diverse, revealing a creature that is both an active hunter and an opportunistic scavenger. Seals are among the most surprising confirmed prey, as the shark is a slow swimmer, but it likely ambushes seals resting on the ice or sleeping on the seafloor. Fish such as Arctic cod, Greenland halibut, and various species of sculpins and flatfish make up a significant portion of its diet. Squid, especially the large deep-water species, are also regularly found in the shark's stomach contents. Perhaps the most astonishing evidence of the Greenland shark's scavenging nature comes from the remains of land animals found inside its stomach. Researchers have discovered the bones of reindeer, moose, and even polar bears in the digestive tracts of these sharks. These carcasses likely wash into the sea from coastlines or are carried by currents, and the shark's powerful sense of smell allows it to detect them from great distances. Whale carcasses, too, are a major food source, and the shark is often the first to arrive at a large dead whale on the seafloor, where it feeds for weeks or months. The Greenland shark occupies a dual role in the Arctic food web, functioning as both an apex predator and a primary scavenger. As a predator, it preys on the most abundant fish in the region, helping to regulate populations of species like Greenland halibut and Arctic cod. As a scavenger, it consumes dead organic matter that would otherwise accumulate on the seafloor, recycling nutrients back into the water column. This dual role makes the shark a keystone species in the Arctic, linking the surface and the deep sea in a continuous flow of energy. The interaction between the Greenland shark and the Greenland halibut is particularly significant. The Greenland halibut is one of the most commercially important fish in the North Atlantic, and it lives on the same deep, cold bottoms that the shark patrols. Studies have shown that the shark regularly preys on halibut, especially the smaller individuals, which suggests that the shark may exert a top-down control on halibut populations. Arctic cod, which are smaller and more abundant, form a critical prey base for the shark, especially during the winter when the cod congregate near the seafloor. The population density of the Greenland shark in the Arctic has important implications for the structure of the food web. Although the shark is not as abundant as cod or halibut, its large size and low metabolic rate mean that it consumes a significant amount of biomass over its long lifespan. Each individual shark can live for over 250 years, and during that time it may eat thousands of fish and dozens of marine mammals. This steady consumption helps to keep prey populations in balance, preventing any single species from dominating the ecosystem. Nutrient cycling through scavenging is one of the Greenland shark's most vital ecological functions. When a whale dies, its body sinks to the seafloor, forming a massive pulse of organic matter known as a whale fall. The Greenland shark is often the first large scavenger to arrive, tearing into the carcass and dispersing pieces of flesh across the seabed. Other scavengers, such as amphipods, brittle stars, and hagfish, then feed on the scattered remains. In this way, the shark acts as a nutrient distributor, transforming a single concentrated food source into a resource that supports an entire community of deep-sea life. The relationship between the Greenland shark and icebergs is indirect but important. Icebergs that calve from Greenland's glaciers carry fresh water and nutrients into the ocean, stimulating the growth of phytoplankton when they melt. These phytoplankton form the base of the food web, supporting the krill and small fish that the shark eats. Seasonal sea ice, which covers vast areas of the Arctic Ocean in winter, also plays a role by providing a platform for seals to rest and breed, making them more accessible to the shark when they enter the water. The shark's movements are closely tied to the edges of the ice, where currents bring nutrients and prey together. The Arctic food web is a fragile network, and the Greenland shark holds a unique position within it. Unlike many apex predators that are active hunters, the shark relies heavily on scavenging, which makes it less vulnerable to short-term fluctuations in prey abundance. When fish stocks decline, the shark can turn to dead whales, seals, and even land animal remains, allowing it to survive periods of scarcity. This resilience has helped the species persist through the dramatic climate shifts of the past, including the ice ages and the warming of the Holocene. The shark's ability to dive to depths of 2,200 meters also means that it can access prey that other predators cannot reach. At these depths, the water is dark, cold, and under immense pressure, yet the shark moves with ease, hunting fish and squid that live in the deep scattering layer. This vertical mobility allows the shark to exploit the full water column, from the surface to the abyss, and to transport energy between these zones. When the shark feeds at depth and then swims to shallower water, it carries nutrients up with it, fertilizing the surface layers. The presence of the Greenland shark in the Arctic also influences the behavior of other species. Fish such as Arctic cod and Greenland halibut have evolved to avoid the shark by staying in shallower water or by hiding in crevices on the seafloor. Seals, too, are wary of the shark, especially when they are young or injured. This fear shapes the distribution of prey across the Arctic, creating a landscape of risk that affects where animals feed, rest, and migrate. The shark's mere presence is a force that shapes the entire ecosystem. The role of the Greenland shark as a scavenger is particularly important in the nutrient-poor waters of the Arctic. The Arctic Ocean receives relatively little sunlight for much of the year, limiting primary productivity. When a large animal dies, its body represents a concentrated source of carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus that is rare in the deep sea. By consuming and dispersing these carcasses, the shark helps to recycle these essential nutrients, making them available to the rest of the food web. Without the shark, many whale falls and seal carcasses would remain intact, slowly decomposing on the seafloor, and the nutrients would be locked away from the organisms that need them. The seasonal ice cover of the Arctic also influences the shark's feeding patterns. In the winter, when the sea ice expands, the shark follows the edge of the ice, where seals and fish are concentrated. In the spring, when the ice breaks up, the shark moves into the newly open waters, where the meltwater stimulates a bloom of plankton that attracts fish. The shark's life is synchronized with the cycles of the ice, and any disruption to the ice cover, such as that caused by climate change, could alter the timing and availability of its prey. The Greenland shark's interaction with Greenland halibut is a classic example of a predator-prey relationship in a resource-limited environment. Halibut are long-lived, slow-growing fish that mature at around 10 to 15 years of age. The shark, being even slower-growing and longer-lived, exerts a steady predation pressure on adult halibut, while juvenile halibut are more vulnerable to other predators like cod and seals. This balance ensures that the halibut population remains stable, neither overexploiting its own prey, nor becoming too abundant for the shark to control. The Arctic cod, on the other hand, is a small, fast-growing fish that forms the core of the Arctic food web. It is the primary prey for many species, including seals, whales, and birds. The Greenland shark's predation on Arctic cod is significant because it removes some of the largest, healthiest individuals, which are also the most important for reproduction. However, because the shark is a slow swimmer, it tends to target cod that are near the bottom, where the fish are less active and more vulnerable. This selective predation may help to maintain the genetic diversity of the cod population by removing weaker individuals. The population density of the Greenland shark in the Arctic is not uniform across its range. In some areas, such as the fjords of Greenland and the waters around Svalbard, the shark is relatively common, with densities estimated at a few individuals per square kilometer. In other areas, such as the deep ocean basins of the central Arctic, the shark is much rarer, likely because the food supply is less concentrated. This patchy distribution means that the shark's ecological impact is strongest in the coastal and shelf regions where prey is abundant and weaker in the open ocean. Nutrient cycling through scavenging by the Greenland shark has a direct effect on the productivity of the Arctic seafloor. When a whale fall occurs, the shark's feeding activity tears apart the carcass, creating a rain of organic debris that settles over a wide area. This debris supports a diverse community of benthic organisms, including worms, clams, and sea cucumbers, which in turn become food for bottom-feeding fish. The shark's role as a disperser of nutrients is therefore essential for maintaining the health of the deep-sea ecosystem, especially in the cold, slow-moving waters of the Arctic. The relationship between the Greenland shark and icebergs is not just about nutrients, but also about habitat. Icebergs that become grounded on the seafloor create physical structures that attract fish and invertebrates. These ice-generated reefs provide shelter for small fish and crustaceans, which in turn attract the shark. The shark is known to patrol the edges of these ice formations, taking advantage of the increased prey density. As the icebergs melt, they release fresh water and sediment, which can alter the local chemistry of the water. But the shark seems to tolerate these changes, adapting to the dynamic environment of the ice margin. The Greenland shark's ability to thrive in the Arctic food web is a testament to its evolutionary success over millions of years. It has outlived every human civilization, because it has learned to survive in an environment that is both harsh and unpredictable. The shark's role as both predator and scavenger ensures that it can extract energy from any available source, whether it is a living fish, a dead whale, or a carcass washed from the land. This flexibility allows the shark to endure the long winters of the Arctic when food is scarce, and to capitalize on the brief summer abundance. The Arctic food web is not a simple chain, but a complex web of interactions, and the Greenland shark is one of the largest nodes in that web. Its presence influences the distribution and behavior of prey, the recycling of nutrients, and the stability of the entire ecosystem. When the shark feeds, it transfers energy from the surface to the deep sea, and when it scavenges, it returns that energy to the benthic community. The shark is a living bridge between the sunlit world of the Arctic and the dark, cold depths that lie beneath the ice. In the end, the Greenland shark is not just an ancient survivor, but an active participant in the ongoing life of the Arctic Ocean. Every movement it makes, every meal it consumes, every carcass it scavenges is part of a larger system that has been in place for thousands of years. The shark does not know that it is a keystone species, but its actions shape the world around it, creating a balance that allows the Arctic to flourish. As the ice retreats and the waters warm, the shark's role may become even more critical, as it helps to connect the changing ecosystems of the North. The Greenland shark's feeding strategy is a remarkable adaptation to the Arctic's unpredictable food supply. It is both an active predator and a patient scavenger, capable of surviving for months between meals. Its slow metabolism, estimated to be the lowest of any known shark species, allows it to thrive on a diet that would be insufficient for a faster-moving predator. This slow pace of life means that the shark can subsist on the carcasses of dead seals, whales, and even reindeer that wash into the sea from the tundra. Stomach content studies have revealed the remains of polar bears, suggesting that the shark occasionally scavenges on the bodies of adult bears that have drowned or died on the ice. The shark's role as a predator is equally important, though it is rarely observed hunting in the wild. Researchers have documented that the Greenland shark preys on a wide variety of fish, including Arctic cod, Greenland halibut, and Atlantic salmon. It also consumes squid, seabirds, and even smaller sharks of its own species. The method of capture remains somewhat mysterious, given the shark's slow swimming speed. It is believed that the shark uses stealth and ambush, relying on its dark coloration to blend into the deep, dark waters of the Arctic. It may also use its powerful jaws to suck in prey that comes too close, a technique common among many bottom-dwelling sharks. The relationship between the Greenland shark and its prey species influences the entire Arctic food web. For example, the shark's predation on Greenland halibut, a commercially important species, can affect the abundance of halibut and thereby the fishing industry. However, the shark also consumes the predators of halibut, such as smaller sharks and large cod, creating a complex balance. In areas where the Greenland shark is abundant, the populations of certain fish may be held in check, preventing overgrazing of the plankton and small invertebrates that form the base of the food web. This top-down control is a classic feature of healthy marine ecosystems. The shark's scavenging behavior has a direct impact on the benthic community, the community of organisms living on the seafloor. When a large carcass, such as that of a bowhead whale, sinks to the deep ocean, the Greenland shark is often one of the first scavengers to arrive. It tears open the carcass, creating feeding opportunities for smaller fish, amphipods, and polychaete worms. Without the shark's powerful jaws, many of these deep-sea creatures would be unable to access the nutritious flesh of the dead whale. The shark thus acts as a gatekeeper, facilitating the transfer of energy from the surface to the deep sea and back again. The Greenland shark also plays a role in the cycle of nutrients in the Arctic Ocean. When it feeds, it releases waste products that contain nitrogen and phosphorus, essential nutrients for phytoplankton growth. These nutrients are often scarce in the surface waters of the Arctic, especially during the long winter months. The shark's waste can fertilize the plankton, kickstarting the spring bloom of algae that supports the entire Arctic food web. This nutrient recycling is particularly important in the deep fjords and basins where the shark resides, because the water is often stratified and nutrients are trapped near the bottom. The shark's interactions with other species are not limited to predation and scavenging. It is also a host to a variety of parasites, most notably the copepod Omatocoida elongata, which attaches to the shark's cornea and feeds on its tissue. This parasite is almost always present in adult Greenland sharks, often causing blindness. Yet the shark does not appear to suffer significantly from this loss of vision, as it relies on other senses, such as smell and electroreception, to locate food. The parasite likely benefits from the shark's wide-ranging movements, as it allows the copepod to disperse its offspring over large areas. This relationship is an example of commensalism, where one species benefits and the other is neither harmed nor helped. Another important ecological relationship involves the Greenland shark and the polar bear. These two apex predators rarely interact directly, but they compete for the same carcasses, especially those of seals and walruses. Polar bears are known to abandon half-eaten kills on the sea ice, which then fall into the water as the ice melts. The Greenland shark is one of the few animals that can access these underwater carcasses, consuming them before they decompose. In this way, the shark helps to clean up the Arctic environment, preventing the spread of disease and the buildup of decaying organic matter on the seafloor. The food web of the Arctic is also shaped by the seasonal migrations of the Greenland shark. During the summer months, when the sea ice retreats and the sun shines for 24 hours, the shark moves into shallower waters to feed on the abundant fish and seabirds. It may follow the pulses of plankton that attract larger prey. In the winter, when the ice returns and the surface becomes dark and cold, the shark descends to the deep, stable waters of the continental slope, where it can find food year-round. This vertical migration pattern connects the surface and deep ecosystems, moving energy from the productive summer waters to the nutrient-poor winter depths. The shark's slow growth and long lifespan mean that its ecological impact is felt over decades and centuries. A single Greenland shark may live for over 400 years, during which time it will consume thousands of prey items and scavenge hundreds of carcasses. Its feeding habits change as it grows. Juvenile sharks feed mainly on small fish and invertebrates, while adults take larger prey. This ontogenetic shift means that the shark occupies different ecological niches at different stages of its life, affecting different parts of the food web. The presence of a large, old shark in a particular area can be a stabilizing force, as it has learned the best locations to find food and the safest routes to avoid danger. The Greenland shark's role as a keystone species becomes even more apparent when we consider the effects of climate change on the Arctic. As the sea ice melts earlier and forms later, the timing of the spring bloom changes, and the prey species that the shark relies on may shift their distributions. Arctic cod, a staple of the shark's diet, is moving northward as the water warms. The Greenland shark must follow its prey, or it may be forced to rely more heavily on scavenging. This could alter the balance of the food web, as the shark's scavenging pressure on carcasses may increase, affecting the availability of food for other scavengers like amphipods and hagfish. The shark also interacts with other large predators in the Arctic, such as the killer whale, which has been observed preying on Greenland sharks in some areas. Killer whales are relatively new to the Arctic due to the loss of ice, and their presence could disrupt the food web. The Greenland shark may become a more frequent target for these predators, reducing its population and altering the dynamics of the ecosystem. However, the shark's slow reproduction rate means that even a small increase in predation could have a significant impact. This is a reminder that the Arctic food web is not static. It is constantly being reshaped by the movements of species and the changes in climate. The shark's own body is a reservoir of nutrients and energy. When it dies, its carcass sinks to the deep sea, where it becomes a source of food for a community of deep-sea organisms, including isopods, amphipods, and deep-sea fish. A single Greenland shark carcass can support this community for months or even years, providing a concentrated source of carbon and nitrogen in an otherwise nutrient-poor environment. This process, known as a whale fall, is a well-studied phenomenon for whales, but it also applies to large sharks. The Greenland shark thus contributes to the long-term carbon cycle of the deep ocean. The shark's presence also influences the behavior of its prey. For example, Arctic cod that detect the presence of a Greenland shark may change their vertical migration patterns, staying closer to the bottom to avoid predation. This alters the distribution of zooplankton, as cod feed on them near the surface. The shark's role as a predator thus cascades down through the food web, affecting the abundance and distribution of planktonic organisms. This is a classic example of a trophic cascade, where the removal or addition of a top predator can affect the entire ecosystem. The Greenland shark's ecological role is also shaped by the unique chemistry of its flesh. The high levels of trimethylamine oxide in its tissues make it toxic to many predators, but they also serve as a cryoprotectant, allowing the shark to survive in the cold Arctic waters. This chemical defense reduces the number of species that can prey on the shark, effectively making it a near-invulnerable top predator. Only a few animals, such as the killer whale and possibly the polar bear, can safely consume its flesh. This chemical armor gives the shark a unique position in the food web, as it can feed on many species without being a significant prey item itself. The Greenland shark's role as a scavenger also extends to the remains of human activity. As Arctic fishing fleets expand, the shark may encounter more discarded fish and bycatch, providing an additional food source. This could alter the shark's natural foraging patterns, potentially leading to increased interactions with fishing gear, which can cause injury or death. The shark's slow reproductive rate makes it vulnerable to even small levels of bycatch. Understanding the shark's ecological role is therefore essential for managing sustainable fisheries in the Arctic. The deep, cold waters that the Greenland shark inhabits are also home to a unique community of bacteria and archaea that break down the shark's waste products. These microorganisms convert the nitrogen and phosphorus in the shark's urine and feces into forms that can be used by phytoplankton. Without this microbial processing, the nutrients would be locked away in the deep sea, unavailable to the surface ecosystem. The shark thus plays an indirect role in the microbial loop, the complex web of interactions between bacteria and larger organisms that sustains the ocean. The Greenland shark's relationship with the benthic community is also visible in the marks it leaves on the seafloor. Its slow, powerful swimming can stir up sediment, disturbing the delicate communities of burrowing animals. This disturbance can create patches of bare substrate, which are then colonized by new organisms. This process of bioturbation is a form of ecosystem engineering, where the shark inadvertently creates new habitats for other species. The Greenland shark is not just a consumer, it is also a shaper of the physical environment. The shark's migratory patterns also connect different parts of the Arctic. Some individuals have been tracked moving from the coast of Canada to the waters of Svalbard, a distance of over 2,000 kilometers. This long-distance movement means that the shark can transport energy and nutrients across vast distances, linking the food webs of the eastern and western Arctic. When the shark feeds in one area and then defecates in another, it moves nutrients from productive regions to less productive ones, helping to balance the overall productivity of the Arctic Ocean. The Greenland shark's ecological importance is also underscored by its role in the life cycle of the Arctic cod. The cod is a critical prey species for many animals, including seals, whales, and seabirds. By preying on the cod, the shark helps to control its population, preventing overpopulation that could lead to a collapse of the cod's own prey, the zooplankton. This stabilizing effect is especially important in the Arctic, where the low biodiversity makes the ecosystem more vulnerable to fluctuations. The shark acts as a buffer, absorbing the shocks of environmental change. Finally, the Greenland shark's presence is a sign of a healthy Arctic ecosystem. Because it is long-lived and slow-growing, it is sensitive to changes in prey availability and water temperature. A decline in the shark population could indicate a deeper problem in the food web, such as overfishing of its prey or the loss of sea ice. Conversely, a stable or increasing population suggests that the Arctic is still capable of supporting a top predator. The Greenland shark is not just a fossil from the past, it is a living barometer of the health of the Arctic Ocean. As the climate continues to change, the shark's survival will depend on the resilience of the entire food web that it has helped to shape for centuries. The Greenland shark's role in the Arctic food web extends far beyond its predation on cod, weaving a complex tapestry of interactions that sustain the entire ecosystem. As a scavenger of remarkable efficiency, this shark consumes the carcasses of seals, whales, and even polar bears that sink to the seafloor, recycling nutrients that would otherwise be lost to the deep. This scavenging behavior is critical in the nutrient-poor waters of the Arctic, where every source of organic matter supports the benthic community of invertebrates, bacteria, and smaller fish. Without the shark's removal of large carcasses, decomposition would release methane and hydrogen sulfide, altering the chemistry of the seabed and harming sensitive species like sea pens and brittle stars. The shark's diet also includes a surprising variety of prey that reflects its opportunistic nature, from squid and octopus to seabirds that mistakenly dive too deep. Studies of stomach contents have revealed the remains of reindeer, suggesting that the shark occasionally scavenges land animals that fall through sea ice or are washed into fjords. This dietary flexibility allows the Greenland shark to survive in an environment where prey availability fluctuates dramatically with the seasons and the extent of sea ice. During the dark winter months, when primary production halts and many fish migrate to deeper waters, the shark relies more heavily on scavenging and on species like the Greenland halibut that remain active under the ice. The Greenland shark also interacts with other top predators in the Arctic, creating a dynamic, competitive landscape. When a seal carcass is available, the shark must compete with polar bears at the ice edge and with bearded seals that tear at the flesh. However, the shark has an advantage in the deep, cold waters where polar bears cannot follow. Its slow metabolism and low energy requirements allow it to wait for months between large meals, a strategy that is impossible for warm-blooded competitors. This energy efficiency is a key adaptation to the Arctic's harsh conditions, where food is often scarce and unpredictable. The shark's relationship with parasites is a fascinating aspect of its ecology, particularly the copepod Omatocoita elongata, which attaches to the shark's cornea and feeds on its tissue. While this parasite blinds the shark in many cases, it does not appear to significantly impair the shark's ability to hunt or scavenge, as the shark relies on other senses such as smell and electroreception. The presence of this parasite may even indicate a healthy shark population, as it requires a long-lived host to complete its life cycle. Furthermore, the parasite's feeding activity could create a small but steady source of nutrients for other organisms, such as amphipods that graze on the copepod's waste. The Greenland shark's influence on the food web extends to the benthic realm, where its movements and feeding habits disturb the seafloor sediment. When the shark swims slowly over the seabed, its fins stir up detritus and small invertebrates, making them accessible to bottom-dwelling fish like the Arctic cod and the eelpout. This bioturbation enhances nutrient cycling in the sediment, promoting the growth of bacterial communities that are the base of the deep-sea food web. In effect, the shark acts as a gardener of the seafloor, maintaining the health of the benthic ecosystem. The shark's role as a predator of the Greenland halibut is particularly significant, as this fish is a major commercial species in the North Atlantic. By preying on halibut, the shark helps to control its population and prevent overgrazing of the benthic invertebrates that halibut feed on, such as shrimp and amphipods. This top-down regulation stabilizes the entire benthic community, ensuring that no single species dominates. The shark's predation also removes weak or diseased individuals, strengthening the halibut population through natural selection. Seasonal changes in the Arctic profoundly affect the Greenland shark's ecology and food web interactions. During the spring bloom of phytoplankton, the entire ecosystem shifts as zooplankton explode in number, followed by capelin and Arctic cod that feed on them. The shark swims into shallower waters to intercept these aggregations, taking advantage of the temporary abundance. In the summer, when sea ice retreats, the shark follows the edge of the ice, where prey is concentrated and where it can find carcasses of seals that have been killed by polar bears. In the winter, the shark returns to deeper, more stable waters, where it relies on scavenging and on fish that live in the darkness. The Greenland shark's slow growth rate and extreme longevity mean that its population dynamics are closely tied to the long-term stability of the Arctic food web. A single shark may live through multiple cycles of climate fluctuation, from cold periods with extensive sea ice to warmer intervals when ice cover shrinks. Its ability to survive such changes depends on the resilience of its prey species, which in turn depend on the health of the phytoplankton and zooplankton communities. If climate change reduces the extent of sea ice, the primary production that fuels the entire food web may decline, leading to a cascade of effects that ultimately reach the Greenland shark. The shark's scavenging of whale carcasses is a particularly important ecological function, as a single large whalefall can support a community of organisms for decades. When a bowhead whale dies and sinks to the seafloor, the Greenland shark is one of the first to arrive, feeding on the blubber and mussel. This initial consumption breaks open the carcass, allowing other scavengers such as hagfish, amphipods, and polychaete worms to colonize. The whale's bones then become a habitat for chemosynthetic bacteria that produce energy from sulfur compounds, sustaining a unique ecosystem that can last for decades. The Greenland shark's role in this process ensures that the nutrients from the whale are distributed throughout the food web. The shark's interactions with seabirds are another subtle but important aspect of its ecology. When seabirds like the thick-billed murray dive for fish, they sometimes become prey themselves if they venture too close to a Greenland shark. However, the shark more commonly feeds on birds that have died from natural causes and sunk to the seafloor, such as those killed by storms or oil spills. This scavenging removes dead birds from the water column, preventing the spread of disease and recycling nutrients back into the system. The Greenland shark's position at the top of the food web also means that it accumulates high levels of toxins such as mercury and persistent organic pollutants from its prey. These contaminants are passed up the food chain from plankton to fish to the shark, a process known as biomagnification. The shark's tissues contain some of the highest concentrations of these pollutants measured in any Arctic animal, making it a valuable indicator of environmental contamination. Scientists analyze the shark's flesh and liver to track the movement of pollutants through the Arctic ecosystem, providing data that can inform conservation policies. The shark's predation on the Arctic cod has a direct impact on the cod's prey, the copepods and amphipods that form the base of the food web. By controlling cod numbers, the shark prevents the cod from overgrazing these zooplankton, which in turn supports the growth of phytoplankton through nutrient recycling. This indirect effect is a classic example of a trophic cascade, where a top predator influences multiple levels of the food web. In the Arctic, where species diversity is low, such cascades are particularly strong and can shape the entire ecosystem. The Greenland shark's sensitivity to changes in the food web makes it a sentinel species for the health of the Arctic Ocean. When the shark's growth rate or reproduction declines, it often signals a disruption in the availability of its prey, such as a collapse in the cod population due to overfishing, or a decline in seal carcasses due to loss of sea ice. Monitoring the shark's condition can provide early warnings of ecosystem shifts that might otherwise go unnoticed. For example, if the shark's diet shifts from fish to more scavenging, it may indicate that fish stocks are dwindling, prompting a need for conservation action. The shark's role in the food web is also influenced by the presence of other large predators, such as the sleeper shark in the Pacific and the Pacific lamprey, which occasionally parasitizes the Greenland shark. These interactions are still poorly understood, but they add another layer of complexity to the ecosystem. The Greenland shark is not a solitary hunter. It is part of a community of deep-sea predators that includes the Greenland halibut, the snailfish, and the giant grenadier. Each species occupies a slightly different niche, but their diets overlap, creating competition that shapes the distribution and abundance of prey. The shark's extreme longevity means that it integrates the effects of environmental changes over many decades. A single shark alive today may have been born during the height of the Industrial Revolution, when the Arctic was still largely pristine. Its body contains a record of the chemical signatures of the ocean over its lifetime, including the rise of mercury from coal burning and the decline of oxygen due to climate change. By analyzing the shark's tissues, scientists can reconstruct the history of the Arctic food web, providing a baseline for understanding how it has changed. The Greenland shark's role in the food web is not merely passive, it actively shapes the evolution of its prey species. The constant pressure of predation selects for fish that are more cautious, faster, or better at hiding, driving natural selection that influences the genetic makeup of entire populations. The shark's scavenging behavior also selects for animals that are efficient at finding and consuming carcasses, such as the amphipod Anonyx nugax, which has evolved to detect whale falls from great distances. The shark is a keystone species in the truest sense, its presence or absence having disproportionate effects on the structure and function of the Arctic ecosystem. In the dimly lit waters of the deep Arctic, the Greenland shark patrols its domain with a slow, deliberate grace. Its every movement sends ripples through the food web, from the smallest plankton to the largest whale. The shark does not rush. It has all the time in the world. And in that patience lies the secret to the stability of the Arctic Ocean, a stability that is now being tested by the unprecedented changes of a warming planet. The shark's survival is a measure of the resilience of the entire ecosystem, a living thread connecting the past, present, and future of the Arctic. The Greenland shark remains one of the most enigmatic creatures in the ocean, and its population size is a mystery that has defied scientific inquiry for decades. No reliable estimate exists for how many individuals swim through the cold waters of the North Atlantic and Arctic. The species is rarely seen at the surface, and its deep habitat makes traditional survey methods nearly impossible. Mark recapture studies have failed repeatedly because recapture rates are vanishingly low, leaving researchers with only educated guesses. This absence of a baseline number means that every conservation assessment begins with a fundamental unknown. The International Union for Conservation of Nature lists the Greenland shark as near threatened, a designation that reflects the uncertainty surrounding its numbers. Bycatch in Greenlandic fisheries, particularly in the halibut and shrimp trawl fisheries, claims an unknown number of sharks each year. This incidental mortality may be substantial, but without a baseline population estimate, its true impact remains hidden. Some studies suggest that hundreds of Greenland sharks are caught annually in the waters off Greenland and Iceland, but these figures are extrapolations from limited data. The species is also vulnerable to entanglement in fishing gear, and the stress of capture may kill individuals even if they are released. Conservationists worry that the near-threatened status could shift to vulnerable or endangered if bycatch rates increase, but we simply do not know the tipping point. One of the most profound gaps in knowledge concerns the location of nursery areas. No pregnant female has ever been documented in the wild, and no juvenile Greenland shark has been observed with certainty. This absence of data leaves scientists unable to determine where the species reproduces or how its young survive. The few small sharks that have been caught are often in deep fjords or near the ice edge, but these sightings are too rare to confirm a nursery ground. It is possible that the young are born in the deep ocean, far from human observation, and that they remain there for decades before ascending to shallower waters. Without this information, we cannot protect the next generation of a creature that lives for centuries. The Arctic is warming at an alarming rate, and the Greenland shark's ecosystem is shifting in ways that are poorly understood. Sea ice is declining by about 13% per decade, and this loss reduces the cold water habitats that the species may depend on. Prey species such as Atlantic cod, halibut, and seals are moving northward or changing in abundance, and the shark's ability to adapt to these shifts is unknown. Whether the Greenland shark is declining under the pressure of climate change is a question that cannot be answered yet. Long-term monitoring has only just begun, and the shark's slow growth rate means that population responses may take decades to become apparent. The same longevity that makes the species remarkable also makes it vulnerable to slow environmental changes that outpace its ability to evolve. Scientists are now turning to the Greenland shark's genome to unlock the secrets of its extraordinary longevity. The FOXO3 gene, which is associated with longevity in many species including humans, has been identified in the shark's DNA. Other pathways, such as those involving SIRT1, insulin signaling, and DNA repair mechanisms, are also being studied for their potential to slow aging. The Greenland shark's genome was sequenced in 2020, revealing a unique combination of genetic adaptations that allow it to repair cellular damage over centuries. This research could one day inform human medicine, offering insights into how to prevent age-related diseases such as cancer and neurodegeneration. However, the ethical implications of studying a creature that lives for centuries are profound, and we must ask whether our quest for knowledge justifies the disruption of a life that spans millennia. New acoustic tagging programs are being developed to track the movements of individual sharks over years and decades. These tags record depth, temperature, and location, and they transmit data to underwater receivers or to satellites when the shark surfaces. The technology requires the shark to be captured and handled, a process that may stress an animal of such advanced age. The data from these programs could reveal migration patterns, home ranges, and habitat use, but the technology is still in its infancy. Only a handful of Greenland sharks have been tagged with acoustic transmitters, and the results are preliminary. Researchers hope to expand these efforts to understand how the species uses the deep ocean and whether it follows predictable routes across the Arctic. The very act of studying a Greenland shark raises ethical questions that are rarely confronted in marine biology. To tag a shark that may be 4 centuries old is to impose a human timeline on a creature that exists on a different scale of time. Scientists must weigh the benefits of knowledge against the potential harm to an individual whose life spans millennia. The shark may experience stress from capture, disorientation from handling, or injury from the tag itself. Yet without such studies, we cannot protect the species from the threats we have introduced. This tension between curiosity and conservation is a central dilemma for researchers who study ancient animals. The future of Greenland shark research depends on new technologies that are still in development. Environmental DNA sampling could allow scientists to detect the presence of the shark without ever seeing it, using water samples from the deep ocean. This method might reveal nursery areas by identifying DNA from pregnant females or young sharks. Autonomous underwater vehicles, or gliders, can patrol the depths for months at a time, recording acoustic data and environmental conditions. These machines could monitor the shark's habitat without the need for human intervention, reducing the stress on the animal. However, these tools are expensive and require years of development before they can be deployed at scale. The question of whether the Greenland shark is declining under climate change is linked to the broader fate of the Arctic ecosystem. The species is an apex predator, and its decline would ripple through the food web. But we do not know if the shark can shift its range northward as the ice retreats, or if it will be trapped by warming waters that exceed its tolerance. The shark's slow metabolism may allow it to survive in warmer conditions, but its prey may not. Some models suggest that the Greenland shark's habitat could shrink by as much as 30% by the end of the century, but these are projections based on incomplete data. The only way to know is to continue monitoring for decades, a timescale that matches the shark's own pace of life. The Greenland shark's near-threatened status is a placeholder for ignorance rather than a measure of risk. The IUCN listing is based on the assumption that the species is not in immediate danger, but this assumption could be wrong. Bycatch mortality is unregulated in many parts of the range, and the shark is often discarded as waste. In some fisheries, the shark is caught intentionally for its liver oil, though this practice has declined. The lack of a population estimate means that we cannot set sustainable catch limits, and the shark may be taken at rates that are unsustainable over centuries. The species is also vulnerable to pollution, as it accumulates high levels of mercury and other toxins in its tissues. These contaminants may affect its reproduction and health, but the effects are unknown. The search for nursery areas is one of the most urgent priorities for Greenland shark research. If the young are born in specific locations, those areas need protection from fishing and other human activities. But the shark's deep-sea habitat makes it difficult to find even adult individuals, let alone the elusive juveniles. Some researchers have proposed that the young may be born in the waters around Greenland and Iceland, where the cold temperatures are suitable for the species. Others speculate that the nursery could be in the waters of the Canadian Arctic, where the shark is rarely observed. The only way to confirm these theories is to deploy deep-sea cameras and sample the water for environmental DNA. But these efforts are expensive and logistically challenging. The genomic research into the Greenland shark's longevity genes has implications beyond the species itself. The FOXO3 gene is a key regulator of the aging process, and variations in this gene are linked to human longevity. The Greenland shark has multiple copies of FOXO3, which may enhance its ability to repair DNA damage and resist oxidative stress. Other pathways, such as the insulin-like growth factor signaling pathway, are also involved in the shark's slow growth and long life. Scientists are studying how these pathways interact to produce a lifespan that exceeds 500 years in some individuals. This knowledge could lead to therapies that slow aging in humans, but it also raises ethical questions about the use of such knowledge. The shark has lived for centuries without human intervention, and its genome is a natural product of evolution, not a drug to be exploited. Acoustic tagging programs are beginning to reveal the hidden lives of Greenland sharks, but the data are sparse. One study in Svalbard tagged a few individuals and found that they moved only a few kilometers per day, suggesting a slow, deliberate lifestyle. Other tags have recorded dives to depths of over 1,000 meters, where the shark may feed on carcasses of seals and whales. The tags last for up to a year, but the shark's slow movements mean that even a year of data may not capture a full annual cycle. Researchers are now developing tags that can last for several years, using battery technology that operates in the cold deep sea. These tags will be deployed on a larger scale in the coming decade, but the ethical considerations remain. The shark's skin is thick and tough, but the tagging process still requires a hole to be drilled for the tag, and the wound may heal slowly. The ethical question of studying a 400-year-old animal is not merely academic. The Greenland shark is a living fossil, a creature that has witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the expansion of the Industrial Revolution, and the warming of the planet. To capture such an animal is to interrupt a life that has been uninterrupted for centuries. The stress of handling could affect its health, and the tag could cause infection or injury. Some scientists argue that the knowledge gained from tagging is essential for conservation, and that the risk is justified by the need to protect the species. Others believe that we should leave the shark alone, observing it only through non-invasive methods such as environmental DNA and remote cameras. This debate is not resolved, and it reflects a deeper tension between our desire to understand and our responsibility to respect. The future of research on the Greenland shark will require international collaboration, as the species ranges across the waters of multiple nations. Canada, Greenland, Iceland, Norway, and Russia all have Greenland shark populations within their exclusive economic zones. Each country has different regulations for fishing and research, and coordinating efforts is difficult. The cost of deep-sea research is high, and funding for such projects is limited. The Greenland shark is not a charismatic species like the great white shark, and it does not attract the same public attention. This lack of awareness means that conservation efforts are often underfunded, and the species remains a low priority for government agencies. Yet the shark's potential to reveal the secrets of aging could change that, as medical research funding may support genomic studies. The mystery of the Greenland shark's nursery areas is perhaps the most tantalizing of all unknowns. If the species reproduces in the deep ocean, we may never find the young. The only way to locate them is to search for the chemical signatures of reproduction in the water, such as the presence of hormones or DNA from newborn sharks. This technique is still experimental, but it offers hope. Some researchers have suggested that the young may be born in the waters around Greenland's fjords, where the cold temperatures are stable and the prey is abundant. But without a confirmed sighting, these are just guesses. The discovery of a nursery area would be a major breakthrough, allowing scientists to study the early life of the shark and to protect the next generation. The impact of climate change on the Greenland shark is a slow-moving crisis that we may not fully understand for decades. The Arctic is warming faster than any other region on Earth, and the species is adapted to the cold. If the shark's habitat shrinks, it may be forced into deeper waters, where the pressure is higher and the prey is scarce. The shark's slow metabolism means it can survive on very little food, but it also means that any reduction in prey availability could have a disproportionate effect. The shark's population may have been stable for centuries, but the current rate of environmental change is unprecedented. The only way to know if the species is declining is to monitor it over the long term, using the same methods that are now being developed. The conservation status of the Greenland shark is a reminder of how much we do not know about the deep ocean. The near-threatened designation is a category of uncertainty, and it may be revised as new data emerges. The species is not protected under international law, and it is not listed under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. This means that the shark can be caught and traded without regulation, as long as it is not a target species. The bycatch mortality in Greenlandic fisheries is the most direct threat, but it is not the only one. The shark is also vulnerable to ship strikes, noise pollution, and plastic waste. These threats are cumulative, and their combined effect is unknown. The genomic research into the Greenland shark's longevity genes is ongoing, and the results are promising. The FOXO3 gene is a key regulator of aging, and the shark's version of this gene is highly active. Other genes, such as those involved in DNA repair and telomere maintenance, are also upregulated. These adaptations allow the shark to live for centuries without developing cancer or other age-related diseases. The study of these pathways could lead to new drugs that target aging in humans, but the ethical implications are complex. The shark's genome is a natural resource, but it is also a part of the animal's biology, and we must consider the welfare of the individual. The use of the shark's genetic information for medical research raises questions about ownership and consent. The shark cannot give consent, and its genome is not ours to take without responsibility. The acoustic tagging programs are the most direct way to understand the Greenland shark's movements, but they are also the most invasive. The tags are attached to the dorsal fin or implanted in the body, and they require the shark to be captured. The capture process involves a long line, which may cause injury to the shark's mouth or gills. The shark is then brought to the surface, where the change in pressure can cause stress and disorientation. The tagging process itself takes only a few minutes, but the shark may be affected for hours or days. Researchers are working to minimize the stress by using quick-release hooks and handling the shark in the water. But the fact remains that we are disturbing a creature that has lived for centuries without human contact. The ethical question of studying a 400-year-old animal is not new, but it is unresolved. The Greenland shark is a symbol of the deep time of the ocean, and our actions toward it reflect our values. Some scientists argue that we have a duty to understand the species in order to protect it, and that this duty justifies the risk. Others believe that we should respect the shark's autonomy and leave it alone. There is no right answer, only a balance between knowledge and compassion. The future of research on the Greenland shark will depend on how we navigate this balance. The species is a living archive of the Earth's history, and it deserves our caution as well as our curiosity. Even after decades of observation, the Greenland shark remains one of the least understood vertebrates on the planet. Its extreme longevity, slow metabolism, and inaccessible habitat create a wall of unknowns that scientists are only beginning to chip away at. We do not know exactly how many Greenland sharks exist, nor do we have a reliable estimate of their population trends across the Arctic and North Atlantic. The deep waters they inhabit are vast and difficult to survey, and the shark's dark coloration and slow movements make it nearly invisible to conventional underwater cameras. Researchers have attempted to use baited remote underwater video stations, but the sharks often arrive hours after the bait is deployed, and the footage is often too murky to identify individuals. The true range of the species may extend far beyond the known areas, into the deep basins of the Norwegian Sea or the cold waters off the coast of Canada. Without a clear population map, we cannot assess the impact of climate change, fishing bycatch, or pollution on this ancient species. One of the greatest mysteries is the Greenland shark's reproductive biology. We know that females give birth to live young, with litters of around 10 pups, but the gestation period has never been directly observed. Some scientists estimate that pregnancy could last anywhere from 2 to 8 years, based on the slow growth rates of the species and the long intervals between known births. If true, this would be the longest gestation period of any vertebrate, exceeding even the elephant's 22 months. The mating behavior of Greenland sharks has never been filmed in the wild, and the locations of their pupping grounds remain unknown. It is possible that females migrate to specific shallow bays or fjords to give birth, but no such site has ever been confirmed. The pups are born at a length of about 40 centimeters, and they are immediately independent, but where they spend their first few years is a complete blank. Juvenile Greenland sharks are almost never caught in research surveys, suggesting that they inhabit a different depth zone or a hidden nursery habitat. Until we find these nursery areas, we cannot understand how the next generation is recruited into the population. The diet of the Greenland shark is another area of conjecture. Stomach contents have revealed the remains of fish, seals, reindeer, and even polar bears, but these are mostly scavenged meals. The shark is known to be a sluggish swimmer, and it is unlikely to hunt fast-moving prey like seals unless they are already dead or dying. Recent studies using stable isotope analysis suggest that the shark feeds primarily on deep-sea fish and squid, with a small amount of marine mammal carrion. However, the exact composition of its diet varies by location and season, and we have no long-term data on how feeding habits change with age. The Greenland shark's role in the deep-sea food web is therefore a puzzle. It may be a keystone scavenger, recycling nutrients from carcasses that sink to the ocean floor. Or it may be a more active predator than we assume, using its keen sense of smell to locate prey in the darkness. The shark's swimming speed is only about 1 kilometer per hour, but it can accelerate for short bursts, and its teeth are adapted for gripping, not cutting. Understanding its hunting strategy will require direct observation, perhaps through the use of animal-borne cameras that record the shark's behavior in real time. The sensory biology of the Greenland shark is also poorly understood. Its eyes are often infested with a parasitic copepod called Omatocoita elongata, which attaches to the cornea and causes blindness. Nearly all adult Greenland sharks have this parasite, yet they manage to navigate, hunt, and find mates. How they do this without functional vision is a mystery. The shark may rely on other senses, such as electroreception, chemoreception, or the detection of vibrations through the lateral line. Its olfactory bulbs are large, suggesting that smell is a primary sense. The shark's ability to detect the faint chemical signals of prey or potential mates in the deep sea is likely extraordinary, but no detailed study of its olfactory capabilities has been conducted. The parasite itself may also be a source of bioluminescence, as some researchers have hypothesized that the copepod glows to attract prey toward the shark's mouth. This idea remains speculative, and the relationship between the shark and the parasite is far from understood. The copepod could be a mutualist, a commensal, or a serious drain on the shark's energy. Until we can study living sharks in their natural environment, these questions will remain unanswered. The shark's internal clock is another frontier of unknown science. The age estimation method using radiocarbon dating of eye lenses has given us a maximum lifespan of about 400 years, but this is an average among only a few dozen individuals. We do not know if some sharks live even longer, perhaps reaching 500 years, or if the lifespan varies by sex or geographic region. The mechanism that allows such extreme longevity is not yet identified. The Greenland shark's genome has been sequenced, but the analysis of its genetic pathways for DNA repair, telomere maintenance, and stress resistance is still in its early stages. Scientists are comparing the shark's genome to that of other long-lived species, such as the bowhead whale and the naked mole rat. But the unique adaptations of the Greenland shark may be unlike any other. The shark's slow growth rate is linked to its cold environment, but the cellular and molecular processes that prevent aging are not simply a matter of low temperature. The shark may have evolved specific enzymes that protect against oxidative damage, or it may have a highly efficient system for removing damaged proteins. Each of these possibilities requires years of laboratory work and can only be validated by studying living tissue, which is difficult to obtain from a deep-sea animal. The impact of climate change on the Greenland shark is a pressing unknown. The Arctic is warming at up to 4 times the global average, and the sea ice is retreating rapidly. The deep waters of the North Atlantic are also warming, and the oxygen content of the ocean is declining. How will the Greenland shark respond to these changes? Its metabolism is already near the lower limit for vertebrates, and a rise in water temperature could increase its energy requirements, forcing it to hunt more frequently or move to deeper, colder refuges. The availability of its prey may shift as fish and squid migrate poleward. The Greenland shark's scavenging role may become more important as the Arctic ecosystem changes, but it could also face competition from other species, such as the Pacific sleeper shark, which may expand its range through the Bering Strait. The potential for hybridization between the 2 sleeper shark species is a topic of current research, but no data exists yet. The Greenland shark's distribution may contract or fragment, and the loss of deep-sea habitats due to bottom trawling or mining could further stress the population. Without a baseline of population health, we cannot predict the outcome of these pressures. Future research will depend heavily on technological advances that reduce the need for direct capture. Acoustic telemetry has already allowed scientists to track the movements of some sharks for several years, but the tags are expensive and require careful placement. The development of longer-lasting, non-invasive tags that can record depth, temperature, and acceleration for a decade or more is a priority. Satellite tags that transmit data when the shark surfaces are useful, but Greenland sharks rarely spend time at the surface, and the tags have a limited battery life. Biologging devices that are attached to the shark's dorsal fin and can be recovered after a set period may provide high-resolution data on behavior and physiology. The use of environmental DNA, or eDNA, is another promising tool. By sampling seawater for traces of skin cells or mucus, researchers can detect the presence of Greenland sharks in a given area without ever seeing them. This method could help map the species' distribution more efficiently than traditional surveys, and it could even reveal the presence of nursery areas if juvenile DNA is found. The sequencing of eDNA could also provide information on the shark's prey and the microbial community on its skin, offering a window into its health. The role of indigenous knowledge in future research cannot be overstated. Inuit hunters and fishers have encountered Greenland sharks for centuries, and they possess a deep understanding of the shark's behavior, seasonal movements, and interactions with other species. This knowledge has been passed down orally, but has rarely been incorporated into scientific studies. Collaborative projects are now being developed with communities in Greenland, Canada, and Alaska to document traditional observations and to combine them with modern scientific methods. The Inuit word for the Greenland shark, ekalusuak, reflects its importance in the culture, and the shark's liver oil was once used for lamps and as a lubricant. Today, the shark is still caught as bycatch in the Greenland halibut fishery, and the meat is fermented and eaten in some areas. By working with indigenous communities, scientists can access decades of informal data on shark abundance, body condition, and migration timing. This partnership is essential for building a comprehensive picture of the species' ecology and for designing conservation strategies that respect local traditions. The genetic and epigenetic study of the Greenland shark is likely to accelerate in the coming years. The genome sequence, published in 2024, revealed that the shark has a large number of transposable elements, or jumping genes, which may play a role in its longevity. Researchers are now comparing the expression of genes related to DNA repair and telomere maintenance across different age classes of the shark, but obtaining tissue from old individuals is difficult, and most samples come from sharks caught incidentally by fisheries. The development of non-invasive methods to collect skin cells or blood from live sharks in the water is a goal of several research groups. If successful, we could gather a wealth of information on the shark's health, stress levels, and reproductive status without harming it. The ethical burden of studying this creature will be reduced, and we can learn more about its biology while respecting its autonomy. The question of the shark's role in the deep-sea ecosystem is one of the most intriguing unknowns. As a large, long-lived scavenger, it may transport nutrients from the surface to the deep sea and vice versa. Its movements through the water column could mix different layers of the ocean, affecting the distribution of organic matter. The shark's skin is covered with a variety of microorganisms, including bacteria and fungi, that may play a role in its health or in the decomposition of its prey. The symbiotic relationships between the shark and its microbiome are largely unexplored. The Greenland shark may also serve as a host for other parasites beyond the eye copepod, including tapeworms and nematodes. The life cycles of these parasites are unknown, and they may be unique to the Arctic deep sea. The shark's position as a host for diverse organisms makes it a keystone species in a hidden web of life. The cultural and philosophical dimensions of the Greenland shark's existence are also a subject of future reflection. The shark's lifespan of centuries means that each individual alive today has witnessed the rise and fall of modern civilization, the Industrial Revolution, and the acceleration of climate change. The shark is a living memory of the ocean before large-scale human impact. As we develop new technologies to study the deep sea, we must also consider the legacy we are leaving for these ancient creatures. The plastic pollution, chemical contaminants, and noise pollution that now pervade the ocean are all stressors that the Greenland shark has never encountered before in its evolutionary history. The long-term effects of these pollutants on the shark's health, reproduction, and longevity are completely unknown. The shark's slow metabolism means that toxins may accumulate in its tissues for centuries, and the full impact may not be felt for decades. Future research must include monitoring of contaminants in the shark's blood and liver, and the development of models to predict the risk of bioaccumulation. The collaboration between international research teams is essential for the future of Greenland shark science. The species spans the waters of Greenland, Canada, Norway, Iceland, and Russia, and no single country can study it alone. The Arctic Council and other bodies have recognized the need for a coordinated research plan, but funding is limited, and the logistics of working in remote polar regions are daunting. The use of autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, equipped with cameras and sensors could survey large areas of the deep sea without human presence. These vehicles could be deployed for months at a time, collecting data on the shark's habitat and behavior. The data could be transmitted via satellite to researchers around the world, creating a real-time picture of the shark's life. The integration of artificial intelligence to analyze video footage and identify individual sharks by their unique skin patterns is another frontier. Machine learning algorithms could process thousands of hours of footage, identifying the presence of the shark and even estimating its size and age. Such technology would reduce the need for capture and handling, and it would allow for long-term monitoring of the same individuals over many years. The ultimate unknown is the future of the Greenland shark itself. Will it survive the next century of rapid environmental change? The species has endured ice ages, asteroid impacts, and the shifting of continents. But the current rate of change is unprecedented. The deep ocean may be a buffer against warming, but it is not immune. The shark's low reproductive rate means that any decline in population would take decades to recover. The species is listed as near threatened on the IUCN Red List, but the data is insufficient to assign a more precise status. The need for a dedicated conservation plan is urgent, but it must be based on science, not speculation. The next generation of researchers will face the challenge of balancing the demand for knowledge with the ethical imperative to protect. The Greenland shark's story is not yet written, and the chapters that remain will be shaped by the choices we make today. The shark moves through the dark water, unhurried, as it has for centuries, and we are only beginning to glimpse its world. The unknowns are vast, but the desire to understand is a force that drives us forward, and the shark will continue to teach us patience, humility, and the value of the slow and the ancient. The darkness is absolute. There is no light here, not even the faintest glimmer from the surface above. The ice is a thick lid, a frozen ceiling that has sealed the world beneath for longer than any human memory can reach. The water is heavy with cold, almost still, and it presses against the creature from every side with a quiet, relentless weight. The shark does not fight this pressure. It does not resist the cold. It simply exists within them, as if it has always been here and will always remain. The creature moves so slowly that its progress is almost imperceptible. A single fin shifts, then the long body follows, a motion that takes minutes to complete. The distance covered in an hour would be less than a kilometer, a pace that belongs to no other living thing on this planet. Yet this is not a sign of weakness. It is a rhythm of existence that has been refined over time beyond any human understanding. The shark does not need to hurry. It has never needed to hurry. The world around it changes, but the creature does not change with it. It drifts. Above the ice, the surface of the world has been remade many times. Great sheets of frozen water have advanced and retreated, carving valleys and filling seas. The ice has grown thick and then thinned, sometimes breaking apart, sometimes reforming into a solid white dome. The shark has been here through all of this. It has felt the water grow colder and then warmer, shift in salinity, change in its currents. Each change was slow, taking centuries, and the creature met each one with the same patient stillness. It did not flee. It did not adapt in any visible way. It simply continued to drift. The world above the ice has seen civilizations rise and fall. People have built cities of stone and wood, and those cities have crumbled back into the earth. Empires have stretched across continents, their armies marching under banners that no one remembers anymore. The shark knows nothing of these things. It has never seen a human face, never heard a human voice. The noise of history is meaningless to it. The only sounds the creature knows are the groaning of the ice above, the faint whisper of water moving past its own body, and the deep, slow pulse of its own ancient heart. The centuries have passed in a way that is difficult for the human mind to grasp. 100 years is a lifetime for most creatures, but for this shark it is merely a single season. 1,000 years is a long winter, a slow turning of the tide. The creature has drifted through many such cycles. It has watched the ice grow thicker and then dissolve, watched the world above freeze and thaw again. It has not watched with eyes that see or a mind that understands. It has simply been present, a part of the darkness, a shape that moves without intention and without purpose beyond the simple act of existing. The water around the creature is so cold that it would kill most living things within minutes. The temperature is near the freezing point of salt water, a place where life barely clings to motion. Yet, the shark endures. Its body is slow, its metabolism is slow, its thoughts are slow if they exist at all. This slowness is not a limitation. It is a survival strategy, a way of living that has allowed the creature to outlast every animal that has ever shared these waters. The fish and the seals and the whales have come and gone. The predators have faded. The prey has shifted. The shark remains. The darkness is not empty. There are other forms of life here, small and strange, creatures that live in the deep cold and have never seen the sun. They drift or crawl or pulse with bioluminescence, brief flashes of light that appear and vanish in the blackness. The shark does not react to these lights. It does not hunt them or flee from them. It simply moves through them, a silent shape that is larger than anything else in this world. The smaller creatures seem to sense its presence. They give way, moving aside with a caution that is not fear, but a kind of deep instinct. The shark is the oldest thing in this place. It has been here longer than the ice itself, longer than the water, longer than the darkness. The ice above has changed many times. It has been kilometers thick and then almost gone, a thin skin over the sea. The shark has felt the weight of the ice pressing down, and then the lightness when the ice retreated. It has felt the water grow warmer and then colder, the salt shift, the currents change direction. Through all of this, the creature has not altered its course. It has not chosen a new path or sought a different place. It has continued in the same slow, silent drift, a motion that is not directed by any will, but is simply the shape of its existence. The shark does not decide. It does not remember. It simply is. Human time has no meaning here. The creature has lived through the entire span of recorded history, and it was already ancient when the first cities were built. It was already old when the first pyramids rose from the sand. It was already drifting in the dark when the first words were written on clay and stone. The shark has seen none of these things. It has no eyes for the surface world. It knows only the cold, the dark, the slow movement of water. And yet, It has outlived every civilization that has ever existed, every empire that has fallen, every culture that has faded, every language that has gone silent. The shark has been here before all of them, and it will be here after the last of them has vanished. The water moves in slow currents, invisible and gentle. The shark follows them without effort. It does not swim in the way that other fish swim. It does not propel itself with quick strokes of its tail. Instead, it glides, letting the water carry it, letting its own mass and momentum take it forward a few inches, a few feet, a few meters. The movement is so slow that a human watching would not see it at first. The creature seems to be still, suspended in the darkness, a stone fallen from the ice above. But then time passes, and the position changes, and the awareness grows that the creature is indeed moving, shifting through the deep with a patience that has no equal. The darkness is a comfort. It is a blanket, a womb, an endless night that has never been broken. The shark has no need of light. Its eyes are small and perhaps not very useful, but it does not need to see. It senses the world through other means, through the pressure of water, through the faint vibrations of distant movements, through the chemical traces of life and death that drift through the cold. The creature knows its surroundings without seeing them. It knows the shape of the ice above, the depth of the water below, the presence of other creatures nearby. It knows these things with a certainty that comes from centuries of quiet awareness. The centuries have not left marks on the creature that are visible to the eye. Its skin is rough and tough, covered with tiny scales that feel like the surface of a stone. There are scars, perhaps, the marks of old encounters with other creatures, but these are hidden in the dark. The body is large, massive, a shape that seems out of place in the modern world, a relic of a time when the oceans were filled with giants. The creature is one of the last of its kind, a survivor of an age that has passed away. It does not know this. It does not know that it is special or rare or ancient. It only knows the darkness and the cold and the slow drift. The ice above is a living thing in its own way. It groans and shifts, cracks and reforms. The sound travels through the water, a deep, low rumble that is felt more than heard. The shark knows this sound. It has heard it for so long that the sound has become a part of the silence, a background rhythm that is as constant as the beating of its own heart. The creature does not react to the ice. It does not flinch when the ice groans, or when a piece of it breaks away and falls into the water. The shark simply continues, a shadow moving through a world of shadows. The water is clean and clear, but it is also dark. There is no light from the surface, no star, no moon, no sun. The only illumination in this world comes from the creatures that glow, brief sparks of blue or green that appear and fade in the distance. The shark does not seem to notice them. It does not turn toward them or away from them. It moves through the dark with a steady, unwavering pace, a pace that has not changed in centuries. The pace is so slow that it is almost a form of stillness, a kind of frozen motion that is deeper than any rest. The creature has no need for haste. It has no predators, no natural enemies that can threaten it. The cold is not a threat. The darkness is not a threat. The only thing that could threaten the creature is the surface world, the world of light and air. But the shark has never been there. It has never breached the ice. It has never seen the sky. The surface is a foreign place, a realm of harsh brightness and change, and the creature has no desire to go there. It belongs to the deep, to the dark, to the cold. It has always belonged there. The civilizations that have risen and fallen above the ice are countless. There have been cultures that built great cities on the shores of the Arctic, cultures that hunted seals and whales, cultures that lived in igloos and tents of skin. The shark has no knowledge of these people. It has never seen their fires, never heard their songs, never felt the impact of their boats or their harpoons. The human world is separate from the creature's world, two realms that barely touch. The ice that separates them is more than a physical barrier. It is a membrane between two different kinds of time. The shark's time is slow. It is a time that passes in decades and centuries, not in hours and days. The creature does not age in the way that other animals age. It does not wither or weaken. It simply grows larger, older, slower, a process that continues without end. The creature has not yet reached the limit of its lifespan, if such a limit even exists. It may go on for another century, another millennium, another age. There is no way to know. The creature itself does not know. It does not think about the future. It does not think about the past. It only drifts. The water is still, but it is not lifeless. There are tiny creatures floating in the dark, invisible to the human eye, eating and being eaten in a cycle that has continued for billions of years. The shark does not participate in this cycle directly. It does not eat often. It goes for long periods without food, sustained by its own slow metabolism, by the reserves of fat and energy that have built up over centuries. When it does eat, it is a slow process, a quiet taking of whatever drifts into its path. The creature is not a hunter in the usual sense. It is a gatherer, a collector, a patient presence that waits for the world to bring food to it. The darkness is not empty. It is full of the presences of other creatures, each one living in its own slow rhythm. The shark is the largest of them, the oldest, the most patient. The other creatures seem to know this. They do not approach the shark. They do not challenge it. They keep their distance, moving in the shadows, going about their own small lives. The shark does not acknowledge them. It does not need to. It is the center of this world, the fixed point around which everything else moves, even though it does not move itself. The ice above has advanced and retreated many times. The shark has felt the weight change, the pressure increase and decrease, the temperature rise and fall. It has felt the water grow saltier or fresher as the ice melted or froze. These changes have been slow, so slow that the creature's body has had time to adjust without any conscious effort. The creature is not sensitive to the changes in the way that other animals are. It does not suffer from the cold or the warmth. It simply exists within the conditions that are given, accepting them without resistance. The human world is a place of noise and motion, of light and color, of constant change. The shark's world is the opposite. It is a place of silence and stillness, of darkness and monotony, of a change so slow that it is almost indistinguishable from stasis. The creature has lived in this world for so long that it has become a part of it. The darkness and the cold have entered its body, become the very substance of its being. The shark is not a visitor in this world. It is the world itself, a piece of the deep that has taken on a shape and a life of its own. The centuries pass. The ice above continues to groan and shift. The water continues to move in its slow, invisible currents. The shark continues to drift. There is no beginning to this motion and no end. It is a loop that has been running for longer than any human can conceive, and it will continue to run for as long as the world exists. The creature is not aware of this loop. It does not see the pattern. It simply follows the path that has always been there, the path of the dark, the path of the cold, the path of the deep. The creature is alone. There is no other creature like it in these waters. It has not seen another of its own kind for many years, perhaps for many centuries. The loneliness is not a thing that the creature feels. It does not need companionship. It does not need contact. It is complete within itself, a closed system that requires nothing from the outside world except the water and the cold. The creature is a universe unto itself, a small, dark universe that drifts through the larger darkness of the ocean. The slow movement of the shark is a kind of breathing. The body rises and falls with the water. The fins adjust. The tail sways. These movements are so subtle that they are barely visible, but they are constant. The creature is never truly still. There is always a slight motion, a shift, a change in orientation. The shark is a living thing, and even in the deepest stillness, there is life. There is a heartbeat, a pulse, a flow of blood through veins that are as old as the ice itself. The imagination cannot hold the time that the creature has lived through. It is a time that exceeds the boundaries of human thought. The shark has existed for longer than any human institution, longer than any human language, longer than any human art. It has seen the ice come and go, seen the water rise and fall, seen the world above change from a wilderness to a place of cities and back again. The creature has seen nothing of this, because it has no eyes for the surface, but it has been present. It has been a witness in the only way it can be, by being there, by persisting, by continuing to drift. The water is cold. The darkness is deep. The shark is slow. These three things are the whole of the creature's existence. They are the only truths that matter. The cold is not a hardship. The darkness is not a fear. The slowness is not a burden. They are simply the conditions of the creature's life, the elements that have shaped it over the ages. The creature has become the cold. It has become the darkness. It has become the slowness. The ice above may one day vanish. The water may warm. The darkness may be broken by light from above. These things are possible, but they are not certain. The shark does not consider them. It does not anticipate the future. It lives in the present, in the moment, in the now that stretches out indefinitely. The present is the only time the creature knows. The present is the darkness, the cold, the slow drift. The present is enough. The shark moves. The fin shifts. The body follows. The distance is small. The time is long. The journey is endless. The creature does not know where it is going. It does not need to know. The going is the purpose. The drift is the goal. The darkness is the destination. The creature continues. The water around the creature is thick and still, a weight that presses in from all sides with an ancient patience. The pressure is not felt as a force, but as a constant presence, a quiet embrace that holds every molecule in its place. The shark does not struggle against this weight because there is nothing to struggle against. The water is not an obstacle. It is the medium through which all movement is translated, the substance that carries the creature from one moment to the next. The currents are subtle here, slow rivers of cold that twist and turn through the deep valleys of the ocean floor. They are not visible to the eye, but the creature feels them along its skin, a gentle tug that guides its drift without urgency. The shark does not fight the current. It surrenders to the flow, allowing itself to be carried in a direction that is neither chosen nor resisted. The current is a companion, a silent partner in the endless journey. The seabed below is a landscape of soft sediment and scattered rock, shaped by eons of slow accumulation and the occasional fall of a dead creature from above. The sediment is fine and gray, stirred only by the faintest of movements. The shark does not disturb it. Its passage is so slow and so smooth that the particles of the seafloor remain undisturbed, as if the creature is a ghost moving through a world that does not notice its presence. Occasionally, a faint glimmer of light appears in the distance, a trace of bioluminescence from some tiny organism that has been disturbed by a passing current. The light is brief and weak, a momentary pulse that barely registers in the darkness. The shark does not turn toward it. The light is not a signal. It is simply a fleeting event, a small and insignificant flicker in the vast and timeless dark. The darkness itself is not a void. It is a presence, a tangible substance that fills every space and surrounds every object. The creature knows the darkness not as an absence of light, but as a texture, a quality of the world that is as real as the cold or the pressure. The darkness has a weight, a density that presses against the eyes and the skin. The shark does not see through the darkness. It sees the darkness itself, and that is enough. The cold is not a number on a scale. It is a feeling that permeates every cell, a constant and unchanging state that has become the baseline of existence. The creature's blood is slow and thick, moving through its body with a languid rhythm that matches the pace of the water around it. The cold is not a threat. It is a comfort, a familiar embrace that has held the creature since the beginning of its long and unmeasured life. The slowness is not a lack of speed. It is a different kind of motion, a way of being that allows every moment to stretch out into an eternity. The creature's muscles contract and relax with a rhythm that is almost imperceptible, a pulse that is measured not in seconds, but in the slow turn of the earth. The slowness is a language, a way of speaking that the creature understands without words. It is the language of the deep, the tongue of the ancient cold. The fins of the shark are broad and dark, moving through the water with a grace that is born of patience. Each stroke is a gentle push, a small effort that sends the creature gliding forward through the darkness. The fins do not hurry. They do not know hurry. They know only the steady beat of the creature's will, a will that is not directed toward any goal but simply toward the next moment. The tail of the shark is a powerful rudder, a slow and steady force that keeps the creature on its course. The course is not a line on a map. It is a direction that is felt rather than known, a sense of orientation that comes from the deep and ancient instincts of the body. The tail moves in a slow arc, and the creature follows, turning gradually through the dark water. The eyes of the shark are dark and deep, reflecting the faintest traces of light that might reach this depth. The eyes are not used for seeing in the way that surface creatures see. They are used for sensing change, for detecting the subtle shifts in the darkness that might indicate a presence or a movement. The eyes are patient. They do not search. They wait. The skin of the shark is rough and tough, covered in tiny scales that feel like sandpaper to the touch. The scales are not for protection. They are for feeling, for sensing the water as it flows over the body. Every movement of the current is translated into a sensation on the skin, a map of the world that is drawn in pressure and texture. The creature reads this map with its body, moving in response to the subtle signals it receives. The mouth of the shark is a wide and dark opening, lined with rows of teeth that are not for tearing but for holding. The creature does not hunt. It does not chase. It waits for the slow and the weak, for the creatures that drift into its path by accident or by fate. The mouth is patient. It will open when the time is right, and the prey will be taken without struggle or haste. The gills of the shark are a series of slits behind the head, through which the water flows in a constant and gentle stream. The gills extract the oxygen that the creature needs, a slow and steady exchange that is as quiet as the water itself. The gills do not work hard. They work with the rhythm of the deep, a rhythm that is unchanging and eternal. The heart of the shark beats with a slow and deep pulse, a rhythm that is felt throughout the body like the distant drum of a submerged world. The heart does not race. It does not know fear or excitement. It knows only the steady beat of life, a beat that has continued for so long that time has lost its meaning. The blood of the shark moves through its veins and arteries with a slow and thick flow, carrying the nutrients and the warmth that the creature needs to survive. The blood is cold and dark, a river of life that runs through the body without haste or urgency. The blood is patient. It will continue to flow for as long as the creature lives, and the creature will live for as long as the blood flows. The bones of the shark are not bones, but cartilage, a flexible and light structure that gives the creature its shape, without the weight of true bone. The cartilage is strong and resilient, able to bend and flex with the movements of the water. The cartilage does not break. It yields and returns, a material that is as ancient and as enduring as the creature itself. The brain of the shark is small and simple, a cluster of nerves that processes the signals from the senses without the need for complex thought. The brain does not ponder. It does not analyze. It receives the information from the world and responds with the simplest of actions. The brain is a vessel for instinct, a container for the ancient knowledge that has been passed down through the ages. The world of the shark is a world of sensation, a world of pressure and cold and darkness and slow movement. The world is not a place of events or changes. It is a place of constant and unchanging being, a state of existence that is as close to eternity as any living thing can know. The creature does not think about its world. It lives in its world, and the world lives in the creature. The water around the creature is filled with the faint sounds of the deep, the crackling of distant ice, the rumble of submarine currents, the occasional call of a distant whale. The sounds are muffled and distorted, carried through the water in waves that are felt as much as heard. The creature does not listen to the sounds. It feels them, vibrations that run through the body and into the bones. The sounds are a constant backdrop, a low and steady hum that is part of the fabric of the deep. The creature is not disturbed by the sounds. They are as natural as the cold and the darkness, a part of the world that has always been there. The sounds are the voice of the ocean, a voice that speaks in a language of pressure and vibration. The creature continues its slow drift through the water, moving without destination and without purpose. The drift is not a choice. It is a state of being, a way of existing that is as natural as breathing. The creature does not decide to drift. It drifts because that is what it does. That is what it has always done. The water around the creature is a deep and endless blue, a color that is seen only in the faintest of light. The blue is a color of stillness and depth, a color that is associated with the profound and the unknown. The creature does not see the color. It knows the color through the feeling of the water, through the quality of the light that reaches its eyes. The light that reaches the creature is a dim and distant glow, a remnant of the sun that has been filtered through miles of water. The light is not bright. It is not enough to illuminate the world. It is only a memory of light, a trace of the bright world above that the creature has never known and will never know. The creature does not look toward the light. The light is not a beacon. It is simply a part of the world, a presence that is as abstract as the cold or the darkness. The light is a reminder of the world above, but the creature does not remember. It does not need to remember. The creature moves through a world of rock and sediment, of canyons and ridges that have been carved by the slow movement of the earth. The landscape is ancient, older than any living thing, older than the creature itself. The rock is hard and cold, a foundation that has been shaped by forces that are beyond the comprehension of the creature. The creature does not understand the landscape. It does not know the names of the rocks or the shapes of the canyons. It knows only the feel of the water as it flows over the rock, the change in the current as it passes a ridge or a cliff. The landscape is a part of the creature's world, a part of the experience that is the creature's life. The creature continues its drift, moving through the deep and dark water with a slow and steady grace. The movement is not a journey. It is a continuation, a simple act of being that has no beginning and no end. The creature is the movement. The movement is the creature. The water around the creature is filled with tiny particles, the remains of creatures that have lived and died in the world above. The particles drift down slowly, a constant rain of organic matter that feeds the deep. The creature does not hunt the particles. It breathes them in, filtering them from the water as it passes. The particles are a source of sustenance, a slow and steady food that is always present. The creature does not need to search for food. The food comes to the creature, carried by the currents and the slow drift of the water. The creature is a part of the cycle, a part of the endless flow of life and death that is the deep. The creature does not think about the cycle. It does not think about life or death. It lives in the moment, in the present, in the now that is the only time that exists. The creature is the present. The present is the creature. The darkness around the creature is not a void. It is a fullness, a presence that is felt in every part of the body. The darkness is the creature's home, the place where it has always lived and where it will always live. The creature does not fear the darkness. The darkness is the creature's friend, a companion that has been with the creature since the beginning. The cold is not a temperature. It is a state of being, a quality of existence that is as natural as the water. The creature does not feel the cold. The creature is the cold. The cold is the creature. The slowness is not a speed. It is a way of being, a rhythm that is as old as the world. The creature does not move slowly. The creature moves at the speed of the deep, a speed that is measured not in miles per hour, but in the slow turn of the tides. The creature continues its drift, moving through the dark and cold water with a grace that is born of millions of years. The creature is not aware of the millions of years. It is aware only of the moment, the single and eternal moment that is the creature's life. The water around the creature is a blanket of silence, a silence that is broken only by the faintest of sounds. The silence is a presence, a quality of the deep that is as real as the water itself. The creature does not hear the silence. The creature is the silence. The silence is the creature. The creature moves through the silence, through the darkness, through the cold. The creature is the movement, the silence, the darkness, the cold. The creature is the deep. The deep is the creature's world, and the creature is the world's creature. There is no separation. There is no division. There is only the water, the cold, the darkness, the slowness, the drift. The creature is the drift. The drift is the creature. The creature continues. The drift continues. The water continues. The darkness continues. The cold continues. The slowness continues. The moment continues. The creature is the moment, and the moment is eternal. The deep is a place of peace, a place of stillness, a place of being. The creature is a part of the deep, a part of the peace, a part of the stillness. The creature is a part of the being. The being is the creature. The creature does not know where it is going. It does not need to know. The going is the purpose. The drift is the goal. The darkness is the destination. The creature continues.